Inside the palace, in the quiet elegance of Ariel's chamber, the young mermaid sat with a heart full of restless anticipation. Every second stretched into eternity as she awaited the arrival of the diviner from the Rose Kingdom, the renowned sage who would unveil the truth of her identity. Her hands trembled slightly, fingers fidgeting in her lap. Though her transformation had granted her legs, she still moved with the uncertainty of someone who had lost something familiar. Her bare feet brushed the polished floor, cold and alien beneath her, as if each step were toward some great, unseen judgment. Then the door burst open. Ariel! Prince Eric rushed in and swept her into a fierce embrace, his arms wrapped around her like a lifeline. He held her, as though letting go would cast her into the sea forever. Ariel, my girl, I know now, I know everything. I should have known long ago, but I was blind, how could I not see it? His voice shook with emotion, his words tumbling out faster than he could form them. Ariel's eyes widened in confusion. She didn't understand what he was saying, only that his body trembled and warm tears wet her cheek. My prince? What do you mean? What do you know? He had called her by her true name, Ariel. It was the first time he'd said it aloud, and hearing it spoken by him made her chest ache. The foreign sage, Eric said, smiling through tears, he told me everything. You're a mermaid. No, not just a mermaid. A princess of the sea. I always suspected you were someone extraordinary, and now I know I was right. I saw your kingdom beneath the waves, your father, your sisters, your palace glitters like a dream. Even the pearls there outshine the jewels in my mother's crown. You were the one who saved me during the storm. I know that now. You risked everything, your home, your body, your voice, just to be here. Just for me. Ariel's throat caught. She stared, stunned, trying to process the flood of his words. You know all of it? She whispered breathlessly. Everything. He nodded. She could barely hold back her tears. Somewhere in her heart, a quiet realization bloomed. So the sage really did it. He revealed everything without even needing to meet me. What kind of power is that? Then came the fear. Her hand rose to his cheek, trembling as she asked, now that you know the truth, do you hate me? Do I frighten you? I'm not even human. I'm just a creature from the deep, a being sailors call a harbinger of death. Eric gripped her hands tightly. No, never. Those tales are cruel lies, he said firmly, though he had only just cast aside those beliefs himself. There's no difference that matters between sea and land. What matters is us, our hearts, our dreams. You're the one person in this palace who truly understands me. He cupped her face, brushing away her tears, and kissed her. I love you, Ariel, with or without a tail. Whether you speak or stay silent, whether you walk or swim, you are the only one I want by my side. I will marry you. In the chapel, beneath the blessing of the priest, I'll place my hand on your heart and give you all of mine. And when I do, you'll gain an immortal soul, because nothing is more romantic than a soul freely given in love. Ariel melted into his embrace. Her lips trembled as she returned his kiss, her heart pounding with joy and fear. Eric held her close. Soon, I'll speak to my father. I'll ask for his blessing. But Ariel hesitated. What if he doesn't accept me? What if he forbids it? I'll convince him, Eric said, resolute. I'll refuse the marriage with the princess of Enderland. I don't even know her. I could never love her. My heart belongs only to you. Just then, Eric's eyes lit up. He turned toward the door. You're here. Ariel turned as well, heart pounding. The diviner, the sage, what kind of being could reveal so much truth without even meeting her? She half expected an old man with a silver beard and a staff. But instead, it was him. A boy in pale robes stood in the doorway, his silver hair glowing faintly beneath the hood, his skin delicate as pearl, his eyes cool and clear as moonlight. Ariel's jaw dropped. Rhine. It was her friend, the gentle magician who had helped her transform, who had asked nothing in return, the one who had smiled kindly at her when she was lost and voiceless. He pressed a finger to his lips in a playful show. Ariel nodded quickly, pretending she didn't know him. Rhine watched them silently, smiling at their embrace. But peace, as always, was short-lived. A voice rang from the hallway. Your Highness, the Enderland delegation has arrived. His Majesty commands you to the Grand Hall to discuss your marriage to their princess. And bring the girl with the enchanting voice. She will sing for our guests. A chill swept through the room. Enderland. Ryan's face darkened. Aurora, who had entered behind him, scowled at the name. The Empire of Enderland. Ruthless conquerors with an unmatched naval fleet. To Aurora, they were not guests but invaders, and their name evoked nothing but war. I'm sorry, Eric whispered to Ryan. I must go. I've made arrangements for your comfort, but I cannot stay. As Eric took Ariel's hand and left, tension rippled through the room like an oncoming storm. Aurora sighed. They planned to bind him to Enderland's princess. It's not fair. Ariel's done so much. She must do more, Ryan said quietly. The king won't let her stay for love alone. Ariel must prove she's more valuable, politically, strategically, than the princess of Enderland. Aurora's eyes filled with worry. Even if Eric believes in her, the world might not. And if she fails, her voice trailed off, imagining Ariel's tragic fate, turning to sea foam, forgotten. She turned to her teacher. Should we avoid the Enderland delegation? Could they be dangerous? Ryan didn't answer immediately, but the look in his eyes said everything. There's more at stake here than just a royal wedding. Aurora's casual remark revealed just how little she worried about being recognized by the Enderland delegation. During the war, she'd fought behind enchanted armor, masked, helmeted, and cloaked in illusions spun by the witches. Not a soul had seen her true face. But what troubled her now wasn't her own identity. It was Ryan's. Rumors had already begun to circulate throughout the palace. The mysterious diviner aiding the royal family was none other than a magician from the Northern Rose Kingdom, the sage who had once stood at the front lines against Enderland's invasion. That very name, Ryan, might provoke outrage among the delegation of that plundering empire. We don't need to worry, Ryan said with a shrug, brushing off the concern like a leaf from his shoulder. Let them glare. It's not like we're scared. Aurora's eyes sparkled. Exactly. She threw a few energetic punches into the air, her combat instincts always ready to spark. If they dare try anything, we'll just put them in their place. Laughing, the two returned to the lavish chamber prepared for them by Prince Eric. Once inside, Ryan seated himself on the velvety bed and reached into the depths of his robe. From within, he drew a small, weighty object, his reward for fulfilling the prince's wish. It was a bottle no larger than a thumb, filled with shimmering pink perfume. He placed the artifact on the table before him, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. This wasn't just perfume. It was a wish crystallized into form, conjured from the mysterious power his wish magician talent granted him. Fascinating, he murmured. The knowledge had appeared in his mind the moment the wish was granted. Anyone who wears even a drop of this perfume will appear, to every onlooker, as the person they most deeply love. Their posture, voice, gestures, and appearance will be perceived through the lens of that love, replacing reality with yearning. Ryan tapped his chin. If I wore this in front of Prince Eric, he'd probably see Ariel. If I stood before the king of Western Asia, would he see his queen? Or someone else entirely? That's right, he realized. This artifact doesn't just change how others see you. It reveals whom they love most. He paused. But what if the person has no one they love? Would the perfume simply do nothing? The concept was bizarre, like something plucked from a twisted fairy tale. It reminded him of a containment artifact from that foundation. But this was far more emotional, more personal. In the right hands, this could become a powerful tool, he muttered. Or a dangerous one. Ryan turned toward Aurora. What should I name it? I'm terrible at naming things. Aurora tilted her head, intrigued. She didn't even ask where he got it. After all, bizarre magical items were a magician's daily bread. Instead, she stared at the bottle and whispered, it's like a distillation of everything between Eric, Ariel, and that human girl. Twisted love, misplaced memories, mistaken identities. Ryan's chest tightened at her words. She was right. It was as though this perfume had taken the tangled fates of those three hearts. Ariel's silent longing, Eric's confusion, the false awakening, and solidified it. Misremembered faces, counterfeit affections, love twisted by fate. Rhine breathed, staring at the gleaming pink liquid. Then softly, as if naming a spell, false love. And so the artifact was named. Rhine leaned back on the sofa, hands behind his head, gaze on the ornate ceiling. It seems this talent of mine has depths I haven't yet touched. Each time he fulfilled a wish, the reward varied, sometimes symbolic, sometimes strategic. Were they shaped by the wish itself, or by the wisher? So far, I've only fulfilled 5 or 6 wishes for children of destiny, he mused. Too few to draw solid conclusions. Pity Ariel's family doesn't seem to be among them. His eyes shifted to a nearby shelf. Sitting on it was a softly glowing memory bubble, gifted by the sea hag. It pulsed gently, containing a fragment of her past, memories of Maleficent. He had already reviewed it with Aurora the day they received it. Though the memory didn't mention the full coven of witches, there were hints, fleeting conversations, offhand remarks. One quote stuck out like a dagger. "You'll always be a reject sea witch. We let you stay only because your potions are useful. If you want real power, destroy or conquer a kingdom, just as I have dozens of times. A condition for joining the witch coven, the fall of a kingdom." Rhine understood the implications. Every full member must have overthrown a nation. That makes each one extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, the Western continent teemed with kingdoms, some newly risen, some ancient. The memory alone wasn't enough to reveal specific coven members, but it was a start. As Rhine turned this over in his mind, Aurora stepped to the balcony and stared up at the star-strewn sky. "Teacher," she said quietly, "do you think we can check on Ariel? The banquet, it feels wrong. Something's off." He nodded. "I thought you'd ask." Rhine retrieved a crystal orb and gently placed a single shimmering scale from Ariel beside it. His focus. Starlight spilled from the orb like a flood, swirling until it resembled the swirling expanse of a cosmos. Then, the stars aligned, forming into a vision. Within the crystal ball, the grand hall of the Western Asia Kingdom came into view. Golden chandeliers ablaze, nobles in fine silks, and ministers whispering behind fans. At the center of it all stood King Orlan, Prince Eric, the radiant Ariel, and the entourage from Enderland, that predatory empire cloaked in smiles and ambition. As the images solidified, Rhine narrowed his eyes. This was no ordinary banquet. This was a chessboard, and Ariel was now a piece on it.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
In the grand hall of the palace, the king, queen, and Prince Eric were meeting with the delegation from Enderland. The Enderland envoy looked impressive, with half of them being burly warriors clad in fine armor that showcased their might. However, the strangest member of the group was an old witch. She fit every stereotype, a haggard, frightening figure with sharp, piercing eyes, clad in a traditional witch's hat and robes. She held a wooden staff and muttered strange incantations from time to time. It was said she was the Emperor of Enderland's advisor, the eldest, wisest, and most formidable member of the court's coven of mages. The moment Ariel saw her, a chill ran down her spine, reminding her of the sea hag and the terrifying legends surrounding witches. But the sea hag, while scary in appearance and temper, isn't truly evil. "I hope this witch is the same," Ariel thought. "Crossing the seas and traveling such a long way, you must be exhausted. Please enjoy the finest wine our Western Asia kingdom has to offer." The king, all smiles, warmly commanded the servants to fill the Enderland delegation's golden goblets to the brim. Prince Eric had rarely, if ever, seen his father display such an eager attitude, not even toward himself or his mother. This filled him with unease, as it signaled how much his father valued ties with Enderland. And, of course, the king was intent on having him marry the princess of Enderland. What should I do? I belong to Ariel. I absolutely cannot marry someone else. Ariel would turn into sea foam if I did. The prince fretted internally. What are you thinking about, my child? Raise your glass and toast our esteemed guests. the king urged Eric. "And while we're at it, we should discuss your marriage formally." As Eric opened his mouth to object, the old witch tapped her staff against the marble floor. The crisp sound echoed through the grand hall, silencing all laughter and chatter. Everyone, especially the Inderland envoys, fell quiet, for they knew nothing was more terrifying than the old witch's wrath. "Your Majesty, ruler of the Western Asia Kingdom," the witch began sternly, "I heard something most displeasing on my way to this palace." "What is it?" the king asked nervously. "It seems you have invited a sage from the Rose Kingdom, a despicable magician, who is now staying in this palace," she accused angrily. "This is utterly disrespectful. That magician was once an enemy of my nation and me. Yet here you are, hosting him, letting him sleep in a luxurious room with a silk-woven quilt atop a soft bed." The king, having already learned about the identity of the divination competition's winner from his staff, forced a smile and tried to explain. "Please don't be upset. It's purely a coincidence. I've been recruiting renowned diviners recently, and the sage from the Rose Kingdom just happened to respond." "Expel him," the witch demanded with an unyielding tone. Her voice was so loud that every noble in the hall could hear her. "Oh, her temper is as erratic as ever," thought the Inderland warriors. "Witches who dabble in magic and potions tend to be like this, eccentric and neurotic. And lately, her mood has grown even worse." The king, caught in an awkward position, waved over a subordinate to instruct them to relocate Rhine to a nearby inn or some other place outside the palace. Hearing the witch's words, Ariel felt deeply uneasy. Not long ago, it was that very young magician who had shown them a glimmer of hope for happiness. Rhine is such a kind person. How can they treat him like this? The human world is so complicated. Ariel couldn't help but think. "Wait, this isn't fair." Prince Eric, unable to bear it any longer, stood up abruptly, confronting the old witch under the astonished gazes of the nobles. Why should a foreign witch, a representative of a bandit nation, dictate terms in the palace of the Western Asia Kingdom and demand the expulsion of a magician who had greatly aided him? Eric couldn't accept it. After all, he was a hot-blooded young prince. The sage from the Rose Kingdom, a learned magician, is our guest, a guest to the Western Asia Kingdom. This is our country, our palace. We don't need you, old witch, to tell us what to do," Eric declared. In that moment, he felt like a true hero, just like the ones depicted in storybooks. "What did you say, Prince Eric?" The old witch nearly jumped in fury, striking the marble floor with her staff repeatedly, as if she intended to shatter it. The other Inderland envoys quickly rushed to restrain her. "Fine, do as you wish," she said, sitting back down. Her anger faded into a sinister smile as she added, "But this is a poor choice for both you and that friend of yours, Prince Eric." The Inderland envoys turned pale. They knew that when the old witch wore that expression, it usually meant someone was about to die. Prince Eric is truly loyal, Aurora praised as she watched the scene unfold in the crystal ball. "I can see that no matter the obstacles or the cost, he will find a way to be with Ariel." Then, with a sigh, she added, "If Eric's persistence convinces the king to let him and Ariel live happily ever after in the Western Asia Kingdom, that would be wonderful. The only downside is that Ariel would still never return her undersea home and her family. That's why we must pursue a better ending," Rhine said, his gaze fixed on the crystal ball as he pondered something else. "Why does that old witch harbor such hostility toward me? Is there some hidden reason, or is her temperament simply that erratic? The world is full of peculiar witches, but in Rhine's experience, the most erratic and unpredictable of them all was Black Witch Maleficent. We should stay alert. I have a feeling she might act against us soon. Perhaps even tonight," the silver-haired boy warned Aurora. The arrival of the delegation from the former enemy nation of Inderland had put Rhine on high alert. The connections between kingdoms on this continent were intricate. Just as Black Witch Maleficent and the Sea Hag belonged to the same coven, former adversaries could reappear with new schemes, plotting in ways unknown to them. In this web of complex interactions, The story's progression could deviate entirely from its original fairy tale script. Knowing the original plotline didn't mean they could predict everything. In the grand hall of the palace, the king tried to smooth things over. "Why let such a small matter anger you, dear friends from afar?" he said, attempting to pacify the Enderland delegation. "By coincidence, my court has a singer with the most beautiful voice I've ever heard, melodious and enchanting. I'm sure you will enjoy it," the king added, turning to Ariel. "Come, sing a song for our esteemed guests." The king had confidence in Ariel's singing. He believed that no matter how much anger the foreign envoys harbored, her captivating voice would soothe their tempers. "I don't want to sing for that old witch," Ariel thought, but her resolve quickly shifted. "However, Prince Eric is here. I should sing for him. Ever since he learned my true identity, and even after he proposed to me, I haven't yet sung for him." Gathering her courage, Ariel lifted her dress slightly and gracefully walked to the center of the hall. Her light and elegant steps drew admiration from both the nobles and the Enderland delegation. The Little Mermaid began to sing. Throughout the performance, her eyes were fixed on Prince Eric's handsome face. Ariel sang with more focus and passion than ever before. This wasn't a song she had sung before, but one that celebrated the greatness of love. Her voice danced between tones, now gentle like birdsong, now powerful like a storm cloud. It evoked the rising sun on the horizon, bright and dazzling, the fierce surging of ocean waves, and the still, hidden undercurrents of the sea, brimming with endless possibilities. In a garden beneath the sea, Ariel had once heard her elder sisters sing this very song. "What a beautiful song! I've never heard anything so lovely," the Little Mermaid had exclaimed. "Sisters, I want to learn how to sing too. Teach me this song." The Grand Matron, wearing her silver crown, had laughed softly, stroking Ariel's hair. "You want to learn to sing, Ariel? That's wonderful. With your voice, you'll become the finest singer in the entire ocean. We merfolk don't seek eternal things. Fleeting moments of beauty are far more important. The humans above like to immortalize their stories in books, carve their likenesses in stone statues and paintings, and even inscribe their histories on tombstones to avoid being forgotten. They believe that if something isn't eternal, it's meaningless. But we are different. In the ocean, no statue can withstand centuries of seawater without erosion. When our 300-year lives come to an end, we dissolve into sea foam, carried away by the waves without leaving a grave or any trace of existence. But does that make the beauty we experienced any less real? Our songs, too, are fleeting yet radiant. Perhaps that's why we sing so much but never compose scores. Unlike statues or paintings, a song leaves no trace once it ends, much like sea foam, lingering only as an echo in the listener's heart. The Grand Matron had taken Ariel's tiny hand and looked at her 5 singing sisters, smiling. "My little princess, this song is about love. You're too young to understand love now, but one day you will. When you find someone special, my dear, sing this song for them." As the memory of the Grand Matron's face faded, Ariel found herself gazing at Prince Eric's striking features. She sang with even greater fervor, pouring her heart and soul into every note. Her high notes made the entire palace tremble slightly. The wine in the goblets rippled, the opulent crystal chandeliers swayed, and dust fell from the ceiling. Every noble and envoy in the hall was mesmerized. The most captivated of all was Prince Eric himself. He didn't understand the words of the mermaid's song, but he instantly knew it was meant for him. The only person not enchanted was the old witch from Enderland. How strange, how very strange. This doesn't sound like a human's voice at all, she thought. It's as though only merfolk could sing a song this flawless. She also noticed that Ariel's gaze had been fixed on Prince Eric throughout, and the prince's equally tender, affectionate look had not gone unnoticed. "This isn't good. I hope this isn't what I think it is," the old witch mused anxiously. When the song ended, applause thundered through the hall. Ariel, still brimming with energy, said, "I can also dance. Let me perform a dance for everyone." The king was stunned. He had known that the girl his son had brought back could also dance. Ariel began to dance, lifting her delicate, pale hands and balancing on the tips of her toes. No one had ever danced like this before. As the sea hag had once promised, Ariel's legs, transformed from her beautiful mermaid tail, retained the fluidity and grace of swimming in the ocean. Her movements were lighter and more elegant than any human dancer's. She leaped gracefully from the stage, twirling through the crowd like a butterfly among flowers or a fish weaving through ocean currents. She danced before each guest, finally stopping in front of the prince. There, she lingered the longest, reluctant to move away, before spinning back toward the stage. Watching her retreat, Prince Eric instinctively reached out, as if trying to keep her close. He smiled, a bright, radiant smile. The old witch witnessed this and knew her suspicions were confirmed. She grew increasingly uneasy. This is bad news. There's definitely something special between Prince Eric and that girl. This cannot happen. Prince Eric must marry our empire's princess. I've already heard of his rebellious nature and his dissatisfaction with his father's plans. To ensure this marriage and achieve our ultimate goal, I've arranged everything behind the scenes. I orchestrated the young princess's journey to the forest temple to study so she could meet Prince Eric in advance of fate, the old witch thought to herself, ensuring that the prince would fall in love with her at first sight and believe it was destiny's design. If the prince doesn't marry our empire's princess, the rest of my plans will crumble. My arrangements will be ruined, and my future will be destroyed. As Ariel's performance came to a close, the hall erupted in thunderous applause. The nobles and Enderland envoys showered her with praise, declaring it the most beautiful song and dance they had ever experienced. One guest remarked that the Western Asia Kingdom was incredibly fortunate to have such a talented performer in its court. The king, lowering his voice, leaned toward Prince Eric and said, "Eric, my boy, who would have thought the amnesiac girl you rescued not only sings beautifully, but also dances exceptionally well?" The king had been quite apprehensive earlier when Ariel had suddenly proposed a dance, fearing her movements might not match the splendor of her singing. Her stunning performance had exceeded all his expectations. "My father," Prince Eric replied, seizing the moment, "that girl has a name, Ariel. The sage from the Rose Kingdom has divined her origins, and Ariel has begun to recall her past." But halfway through, Eric hesitated. How can I explain Ariel's origins to my father? Should I outright say she's a mermaid from the depths of the sea? My father would view her as a monster. I'll have to come up with a more suitable explanation. Meanwhile, the old witch turned to the king and said, "Your Majesty, now that the song and dance are over, let's move on to more pressing matters, like the alliance between our two nations and Prince Eric's marriage." A sudden tightness gripped the prince's chest, as if his heart were being squeezed mercilessly. The king and the Enderland envoys began discussing the terms of the alliance. The king expressed his anticipation for a partnership between the Western Asia Kingdom and Enderland. Once the agreement was signed, Western Asia's ships would travel the seas unimpeded, turning their nation into a hub for trade across the Western continent. Spices from the Middle East, silk, and porcelain from the Eastern Empire all would pass through their ports. They discussed many other details until the old witch brought up the marriage. "Prince Eric, you will wed the youngest princess of our empire. She is so beautiful that I guarantee you will fall in love with her at first sight." "No," Eric thought, resolute. "I won't fall in love with anyone else, not even the girl who once awakened me on the shore. My heart, my body, and my soul already belong to Ariel. Imagine if I were to marry someone else. On the first dawn of our union, as I wake to see the sunlight dancing on the waves, casting golden reflections on the sea, and the foam swirling among the tides, I'll know it's Ariel, dissolved into the ocean. I would break down in tears. Prince Eric, why not write her a letter now?" The old witch suggested. "Express your feelings to our little princess. Although you haven't met her yet, as a witch, I often see glimpses of destiny. I can assure you that the moment you see her, you will fall deeply irrevocably in love. She emphasized again, her confidence unshaken. After all, this destiny was her own creation. The king chimed in. Yes, my son. Write a letter to that beautiful young princess at once. Prince Eric realized he could no longer remain silent. He had to speak his truth. Turning to the king, he locked eyes with his father, whose dark pupils mirrored his own. Eric finally summoned the courage to speak, his voice steady and deliberate. My father, I am sorry. I cannot marry the princess of Enderland. Because he paused, inhaled deeply, and then declared, I already belong to someone else. Prince Eric continued, the alliance between our two nations can still proceed as planned. I am overjoyed that our kingdom can form an alliance with Enderland. However, my marriage should not be a prerequisite for this agreement. A heavy silence fell over the grand hall. Neither the nobles nor the king and queen dared to speak first. Below the throne, Ariel covered her mouth, holding her breath. Her eyes burned, her vision blurred by unshed tears. The old witch's expression darkened instantly. The king's eyes were filled with shock. He had already suspected who the prince had fallen for. The signs had been too numerous. But before Eric voiced it aloud, he had convinced himself that his son's feelings for the girl he had brought home were nothing more than youthful infatuation, a fleeting passion that would fade with time. He never imagined it would become an obstacle to the marriage alliance. By the gods, my father clearly disapproves of my decision. I can see it written all over his face. But why? Why must I marry a neighboring princess? Isn't Ariel a princess too? That's right. Ariel comes from the kingdom beneath the sea, and our Western Asia kingdom borders that very ocean. Technically, that makes her a neighboring princess as well. But how do I explain this to my father? Frustration bubbled inside the prince. He could sense the invisible barrier standing between him and the mermaid princess. A wall. He could see it clearly now. But as a prince of today and the future king of tomorrow, he was determined to break it down. We will speak of this matter again after the banquet, the king said in a low voice. For the rest of the evening, neither the king nor the envoys from Enderland mentioned the marriage proposal again. Instead, the conversation shifted to other diplomatic topics. Prince Eric knew that his father's silence did not mean approval. But what surprised him was the king's unexpected gentleness. Despite his bold defiance, his father had not exploded in anger. Did this mean there was still hope? The crimson lanterns dimmed. The music and dancing gradually faded into silence. Servants cleared away goblets still fragrant with wine. One by one, the guests departed. The delegation from Enderland would remain in the Western Asia Kingdom for a few more days. The old witch paced back and forth, muttering to herself. This is bad. This is really bad. Prince Eric actually fell for that girl. That girl, the one with a voice too beautiful to be human. And he outright refused our arrangement in front of everyone. The other envoys shrank back, trembling. None of them dared interrupt her. After a long silence, one envoy finally mustered the courage to report. I have gathered information on the singer. The palace maids say that Prince Eric found her by the seaside. He treats her extraordinarily well because she resembles the woman who saved him during the shipwreck. The old witch's expression shifted. Oh, if that's the case, then this is excellent news, she exhaled in relief, a pleased glint in her eye. That means she's just a substitute. Once Prince Eric meets our princess in person, he will immediately change his mind. But then a shadow of doubt crossed her face. Strange. That girl doesn't look anything like the little princess at all. Could it be that Prince Eric's memory is mistaken? Of course, she knew exactly who had saved Prince Eric during that stormy night. By the way, have you found out which guest chamber the magician from the Rose Kingdom is staying in? She asked. Another envoy, pale and nervous, provided the information. He had already anticipated what was going to happen next. Good. Now, leave me be. No one is to disturb me tonight. Once the room was empty, the old witch took out a mirror and hung it on the wall. She began chanting. Ripples spread across the mirror's dark surface, like waves on the ocean, until an image emerged. A man with stubble, his face rugged and imposing, radiating an air of dominance. The king of Interland. "My liege, I bring you my report," the old witch said. She recounted everything that had transpired at the banquet. How Prince Eric and Ariel had exchanged loving glances. How the prince had publicly rejected his father's arrangement. The Interland king listened quietly, nodding in thought. Then he asked, "So, Prince Eric has fallen in love and refused his father's will?" "Just as the rumors say, rebellious, strong-willed, and full of personality. And what of our remaining plans? Will they still proceed as expected?" His voice carried a weight of authority. "Of course, Your Majesty. I have discovered that Prince Eric sees this girl as nothing more than a substitute. His true love is still the woman who saved him from the sea. That is, Your Majesty's youngest and most beautiful daughter, the seventh princess." The old witch's lips curled into a wicked grin. "As you know, I foresaw a great opportunity in destiny and sent the princess to study at the forest temple, ensuring that she would encounter the prince at the right time. She has no idea that the handsome young man she rescued on the shore was the prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. In her letters home, she only wrote about saving a beautiful youth who had washed up on the beach. But once they meet, they will both believe it to be fate. As I understand, Prince Eric is a hopeless romantic. He cherishes emotions and despises disappointing others. When he lays eyes on the very girl who has haunted his dreams, and she just so happens to be the foreign princess he is betrothed to, there is no way he will reject this so-called love. Prince Eric will believe it to be a dream come true. No matter how rebellious he has been, no matter how much he resists his father's rule, he will desperately want to marry her." The old witch laughed. "The more he loves that singer now, the more he will love our princess. No, he will love her 10 times more, because the singer was merely a replacement." Her grin widened, twisting her face into something grotesque. "And after the wedding, I will follow the plan. I will provide the princess with enchanted spices and instruct her to sprinkle them on herself daily, telling her they will make her irresistible to any man. In truth, the scent carries a powerful magic. Over time, it will slowly warp the prince's mind, so subtly that no one will notice. In half a year, after spending every waking moment with the princess, Prince Eric will fall completely under my spell, becoming a puppet entirely under my control. He is the future ruler of the Western Asia Kingdom, and when he ascends the throne, that kingdom will belong to us." The old witch's eyes gleamed with ambition. Controlling the Western Asia Kingdom, the key maritime hub, will be a vital step in His Majesty's grand vision. Soon, all of the Western continent, and eventually the entire world, will kneel before you. In the mirror, the Interland king gave a slight nod. "Well done." Then, the mirror's image faded into darkness. The old witch's sycophantic expression vanished. Her eyes turned sharp and calculating. She lifted her hands and chanted once more. Ripples spread across the mirror again, and another figure appeared. This time it was a woman, tall, draped in a flowing black and violet robe, exuding a chilling elegance and a beauty as dark as the abyss. Her face was cold as ice, but in her eyes burned an unimaginable madness. The Black Witch Maleficent, the very same which who had once cursed the Rose Kingdom. The old witch grinned wickedly. "As long as I complete my plan and successfully turn Crown Prince Eric into my puppet, I will be able to join your ranks and replace that wretched sea hag. I will become a member of the Coven of Witches, correct? This means that fully controlling the Western Asia Kingdom is now only a matter of time." "Yes," Maleficent responded, her voice chillingly calm. "To destroy or manipulate a kingdom using wisdom and magic, to prove one's power and ruthlessness. This was the requirement for joining the Coven of Witches and becoming a full-fledged member." Shortly after becoming Enderland's royal court mage, the old witch had suggested a strategy to the emperor. Spread the truth about the Black Witch's curse in the Rose Kingdom, throw the once prosperous nation into chaos, and then launch an invasion at the perfect moment. When the war reached its final stages, she would personally deliver the finishing blow to the heart of the dying kingdom. With the Rose Kingdom's destruction, her initiation into the coven would be complete. Unfortunately, a formidable commander had emerged from within the kingdom, leading their forces alongside Sage Rhine and the 12 witches, successfully repelling the invasion. Fortunately, the old witch had a backup plan, the one unfolding now, where she would use the naive young princess to ensnare Prince Eric. She turned her gaze back to Maleficent's image in the mirror. And once I join the coven, what will happen to the sea hag? Will she be cast out? The answer was already obvious, but she wanted to confirm it. She will die, Maleficent said icily, as if she had never existed in this world. We can't let someone who knows so many of our secrets continue to live. Her tone was disturbingly casual, as if discussing something as ordinary as disposing of trash. That sea hag was nothing more than a filler, an unofficial member who never truly earned a place in our ranks. A non-human monster lurking in the deep sea. If it weren't for one of my sisters being interested in a few unique oceanic potion recipes, she wouldn't have even been allowed to meet us. But now, she has outlived her usefulness. Maleficent idly traced her long, sharp nails, a look of contempt flashing across her face. Just wait. It won't take long for my plan to succeed. The old witch cackled with glee. She waved her hand, severing the magical communication and returning the mirror to darkness. Once Prince Eric truly meets the beautiful Enderland princess, once they step onto the altar of marriage, once that treacherous enchanted fragrance begins to corrode his soul and turn him into my puppet, I will have one. I will join the coven of witches, becoming one of the most dangerous witches on this continent. With access to the most forbidden and ancient black magic and arcane potion recipes, I will command a lifespan as long as a mighty empire. I will eliminate anyone who displeases me. Prince, princess, king, noble, no matter how powerful they think they are, they will all be within my grasp. Her manic excitement slowly subsided as she reflected on the day's events. That sage of the Rose Kingdom really irritates me. If not for him, and that damn Valkyrie, my plan to destroy the Rose Kingdom would have succeeded long ago. I won't allow such nuisances to live to see another dawn. The old witch's mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Her body shuddered with laughter. She tossed her wooden staff onto the ground. Bang! The staff transformed into a vivid green viper. This was no ordinary staff. It was a powerful magical artifact crafted over decades. The old witch had spent 10 years searching for the perfect tree branch to make it, then another 10 years refining it under the moon's eclipse, inscribing it with the most fearsome curses. This emerald viper was lethal beyond measure. Even a full-grown elephant would drop dead from a single bite. Most conventional magic had no effect on it. The spells of ordinary magicians would either weaken upon contact with its emerald scales or vanish completely. And even if the snake was killed, it would release a cloud of deadly green poison, ensuring that whoever slew it perished alongside it. A defenseless magician. My little pet is perfect for dealing with him, the old witch smirked. A magician without a strong guardian or extraordinary warrior to protect him is always fragile. She leaned in close to the serpent and whispered, "Go, my darling. Go to the chamber I told you about. Sink your fangs into the silver-haired magician and his companion. While they slumber, pierce their soft, vulnerable necks. Inject them with your most potent venom. Let them die in their sleep, writhing in agony. And after they're dead, make sure to dissolve their bodies and clothes with your poison. Make it seem as if they simply vanished without a trace. By morning, when the palace maids find the empty room, they'll assume the bothersome magician left early of his own accord." The emerald viper slithered through the door crack, darting into the shadows of the palace corridors. It was silent, invisible, and deadly fast, expertly maneuvering through blind spots and the gaps between the guards' patrols. For years, this slender, venomous snake had eliminated countless enemies for the old witch, never failing once. Tonight would be no different. Soon, the viper slipped into the luxurious guest chamber where Rhine and Aurora were staying. Something was off. The old witch's information had indicated 2 sleeping occupants, but there was only one person in bed. The other bed was empty. The snake didn't care. It had one job: to kill. With lightning speed, the viper lunged forward, its fangs glistening with deadly venom. Its target an exposed, pale, delicate neck. Snap! Its fangs shattered. The emerald viper collapsed onto the floor, writhing in pain, its jaw aching as if it had struck solid steel instead of flesh. Something was terribly wrong. The covers were suddenly thrown back. A golden-haired girl flipped off the bed with impossible speed, landing gracefully on one foot, and in a single fluid motion before the viper could react. She lunged downward, her hand darting toward the snake with blinding precision. Her fingers closed around its body like an iron vice. Aurora had been expecting this. A slender, emerald-green viper struggled desperately. It tried to break free with its incredible agility and the immense strength granted by magic. Though small in size, its power was no less than that of a bull. And with its astonishing speed, even the keenest hunters couldn't track its movements with their eyes. Yet, despite its strength and agility, the girl's hand remained as steady as a rock, gripping the viper tightly, leaving it no chance to escape. My teacher was right. Danger was coming. That old witch really made her move against us. Aurora clenched her right hand suddenly, crushing the viper to death. Its emerald-green scales, resistant to many magical spells, proved completely useless against a warrior of her caliber. Snap! The viper exploded into a cloud of emerald-green mist, its deadly poison spreading, rolling and swirling in the air. An inescapable death trap. This was the viper's final attack, transforming into a toxic fog upon death to ensure it would take its killer down with it. Its corpse, now lifeless, dropped to the ground, morphing into a broken wand. TCH, just like that old witch's tricks, one after another. What a nuisance. Aurora quickly stepped back. Even so, a trace of the green mist managed to cling to her palm, corroding her fair skin. The witch's blessing protected Aurora from man-made and natural weapons, as well as magical and natural flames. But the world had dangers beyond swords, claws, fangs, and fire. Dangers the blessing could not shield her from. Aurora, we need to leave this room now. The moment the golden-haired girl retreated, Ryan's figure appeared behind her in a blur. He grabbed her shoulder, and in an instant, their figures vanished. Teleportation. The two reappeared in a vacant room next door. Ryan had long anticipated that the old witch, unpredictable as she was, might cause trouble tonight. Staying vigilant, he had used divination to foresee the next few hours. Nigeria Naira O Epsilon S. Divination and prophecy weren't omnipotent. They only provided vague glimpses of the future. But even fragments of insight could be useful. Just moments ago, at the first sign of danger, Ryan had teleported himself to the neighboring empty room, using magic to observe the original room situation. He had been ready to intervene at any moment, either to break the deadlock or to launch a surprise counterattack. Meanwhile, Aurora, with her near invulnerability, was left behind to face the enemy head-on. A warrior and a mage, each playing their role. How are you holding up, Aurora? Inside the empty room, Ryan looked at Aurora's corroded right hand with deep concern. It's fine. It doesn't hurt that much. The golden-haired girl forced a grin. With her uninjured left hand, she clenched her fist tightly. Beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead as she took deep breaths, pretending she was unaffected. You stubborn child. Ryan sighed. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out freshly prepared medicinal powder and carefully sprinkled it onto her hand. Then, he cast a healing spell, bathing Aurora's palm in pure white light. Now, after combining the Sea Hag's potion-making techniques with his own healing magic, Ryan was confident that he could cure any poison, disease, or even lethal wounds. So long as the person wasn't dead on the spot, he could bring them back. Within moments, the poison was purged, and Aurora's hand was fully healed, looking as flawless as before. Next, we need to clear out that toxic mist. Summoning wind elementals and using neutralizing herbal powder, Rhine swiftly dispersed the emerald-green fog from their room. Once the air was clear, they returned. Although her wound had been healed in less than a minute, Aurora still felt indignant as she recalled the attack. That old witch must have done it. She really tried to kill us. Her frustration only grew. I wish I could give her a taste of her own medicine. But halfway through her rant, Aurora's expression darkened. The problem is, we don't know which room she's staying in. The Enderland delegation is scattered across multiple rooms. And if she's anything like the Black Witch Maleficent, she might have ways to avoid divination and detection. Rhine chuckled. He pulled out his tinderbox and struck it lightly. Whoosh! The door swung open with a gust of cold wind, and a massive dog with eyes as large as teacups appeared before them. Rhine placed the broken wand under the dog's nose, letting it sniff carefully. Find the owner of this wand. The tinderbox's summoned dogs were truly miraculous. Within a certain range, they could track down anything their master sought, be it gold or a specific person. The dog barked twice in understanding before leaping out the window, darting through the palace's garden. It moved as described in the original tinderbox tale, stealthy as a shadow, slipping past every pair of watching eyes, its agility defying its massive size. In the original story, these dogs had managed to sneak into a heavily guarded palace and snatch away a princess without any soldier noticing. Since Rhine didn't know invisibility magic, he didn't follow the dog directly. Instead, he pulled out a crystal ball and tracked the dog's movement from afar, pinpointing the old witch's room. Inside her chamber, the old witch sat alone, waiting for her precious viper to return with good news. Then, a sudden chill swept through the room as the window flung open. A massive, eerie dog stood before her, its eyes as big as teacups. What? Why is there a strange dog here instead of my precious viper? The old witch's face twisted in shock. She immediately realized what had happened. The dog lunged at her, aiming to pin her down. But she reacted faster, chanting a spell. Boom! A burst of black mist erupted, and in an instant, the dog transformed into a hideous toad. Ha ha ha! You thought you could take me down with this thing? Well, for the next 7 days, you're stuck like this. The old witch cackled triumphantly. But then, her laughter abruptly stopped. Her eyes bulged wide in shock, because at that moment, a rope had silently wrapped around her neck, suspending her mid-air, strangling her before she could even react. The old witch dangled in midair, her throat strangled tight. She kicked her legs frantically, struggling with all her might. She tried to chant a spell to save herself or call for help from the strong warriors of Enderland in the nearby rooms. But with her windpipe crushed, she couldn't utter a sound. Ironically, just 10 minutes ago, she had remarked that a mage without protection was fragile. How painfully true those words were now. After several desperate kicks, the old witch's body twitched one last time before going completely still. She had been strangled to death. Rhine and Aurora materialized behind her. As expected of my teacher, such a simple and effective way to deal with witches. Stopping them from casting spells is truly a deadly tactic. Aurora marveled at her teacher's wisdom. Modern, and even not-so-modern stories all say the same thing, Rhine thought to himself. Aurora stared at the lifeless body suspended in the air, ensuring there was no trace of vitality left. Then she asked, "Is she really dead? That easily?" She had heard that this was the most powerful witch in Enderland, the strongest mage in the imperial court of a great empire. Could she have really died so simply? After all, Aurora and Rhine hadn't even used half of their tricks yet. According to my supernatural intuition, no. Rhine answered, "In the world of magic, life exists in many strange forms. It does not always reside in the flesh." Before Aurora could fully grasp his meaning, the corpse hanging in the air suddenly collapsed into dull yellow dust. The powder dispersed, drifting in the cold night wind until it completely vanished, without leaving a single trace of its former existence. For some reason, Aurora suddenly thought of something. If Ariel never gained an immortal soul, then at dawn on the day Prince Eric marries that Enderland princess, she too will disappear just like this. But instead of choking dust, she would turn into something much more beautiful, foam upon the waves. And just like this, the sea breeze would carry her away, the waves would crash, and she would vanish without a single trace. A deep melancholy filled her heart. Her determination to help Ariel and Eric be together only grew stronger. Watching the dust fade away, Aurora turned to her teacher. What just happened? Where did the old witch go? Ron explained. That wicked witch's physical body is dead, but an ancient dark spell saved her. She used necromancy to remove her own heart and store her life force and soul elsewhere, most likely in Enderland. Oe, when her body is destroyed, she simply resurrects at the location of her heart, regenerating a brand new body. Many stories speak of similar necromantic rituals. Ryan sighed. A mage or witch without protection may seem fragile, easily slain with a single blade to the heart. But a true master? They always have a dozen ways to escape death. Aurora's expression grew serious. They still had an even more dangerous which to face in the future. But then, scanning the now empty room, with nothing but traces of yellow dust on the floor, a satisfied smile spread across her face. I can't wait to see their reactions tomorrow morning, when the Enderland delegation discovers their all-powerful, which has been killed. Just imagining it is exciting. Ryan patted her shoulder lightly. Let's go. No need to stay here any longer. That old, which is probably already scheming in Enderland, thinking of ways to separate the prince from Ariel. We need to move as well. We can't afford to slack off. It's time to contact the Sea King. A mysterious glint flashed in Ryan's eyes. I've foreseen something very important. If the Sea King acts as planned, the relationship between the Sea Kingdom and the Land Kingdoms will change forever. Tonight, we head to the Sea King's palace. The next moment, the two figures rapidly faded away, as if they had never been there at all. A forgotten room, untouched for years. Cobwebs draped thick across the ceiling. Dust blanketed every surface. Then suddenly, the dust on the ground stirred. It twisted, gathering into a shape. And after a moment of writhing, the form of the old witch reappeared. DM in it. That was excruciating, but I'm finally back. She seethed with rage at the memory of her own death. This forbidden necromantic spell came with a terrible price. Each time she resurrected, a catastrophic misfortune would befall her at some point. And until she survived that calamity, she wouldn't be able to revive again. I won't forgive you, Magician of the Rose Kingdom, Rhine. The old witch shrieked in fury. Maleficent doesn't even see you as a real threat, but I do. Once I join the coven and learn the most powerful, most ruthless dark magic, I will rip your soul from your body and torment you with every imaginable horror. You will suffer an eternity of pain. She clenched her nearly toothless jaws so hard they almost cracked. But as her rage subsided, she realized something odd. How did that magician kill my precious viper? His magic shouldn't have had any effect on my pet. Closing her eyes, she focused on the magical bond she had with the viper, sensing its final moments. It had been crushed in the grip of an overwhelming force. A powerful warrior is protecting him? Who could it be? The Valkyrie who briefly appeared on the battlefield of the Rose Kingdom? Or someone else? Deep in thought, the old witch pulled out a mirror and attempted to contact Black Witch Maleficent. If they had a common enemy, perhaps this legendary witch would lend a hand. With Maleficent's unfathomable power, who in this world could stand against her? A dark reflection shimmered on the mirror's surface, and soon, Maleficent's face appeared. Her expression was impatient. What now? Didn't you just contact me yesterday? I already told you. Once you complete your mission, I'll let you join us. Maleficent stroked the raven perched on her shoulder, clearly displeased. I was just discussing with my sisters how we should kill that sea hag we're about to kick out of the coven. We were brainstorming the most exciting, most entertaining way to do it. Don't interrupt our fun. If you call me again for something useless, I'll kill you first. The old witch swallowed nervously before speaking cautiously. "Respected Lady Maleficent," she said, "I only wanted to remind you about the magician of the Rose Kingdom and the warrior protecting him. They are our common enemy. I suspect they are planning to come after you, to kill you and lift the kingdom's curse." Maleficent's expression darkened instantly. "What did you say? A mere ordinary kingdom? A nameless magician among countless others on this continent? They think they can kill me." Maleficent let out a scornful laugh. "I couldn't care less about what they're plotting." Before the old witch could respond, the dark reflection in the mirror abruptly vanished. Maleficent had cut the connection. The Enderland delegation remained unexpectedly calm, or at least they appeared to be. They made no public announcement about the old witch's assassination. Instead, they proceeded with their scheduled meetings with the king, carrying out all the usual diplomatic duties. The only explanation they offered was that the wise court, which was feeling unwell and resting in her chambers. The envoys from that bandit nation must be losing their minds. They know that Old Witch failed in her attack and got herself killed instead, but they can only accept their bad luck. What else can they do? They lack both strength and justification. Hearing about the Enderland delegation's reaction, Aurora couldn't help but laugh. Without a doubt, fighting back against the Old Witch last night had brought her immense joy, just like any other 10-year-old girl would be thrilled after getting a favorite new toy. For some reason, Aurora had a nagging feeling that the Old Witch bore some resemblance to the Black Witch Maleficent, the one who had cursed her yet whom she had never actually met. Was it because they both wielded sinister and ruthless magic? Meanwhile, Rhine had already contacted the Sea King of the Mermaid Kingdom, instructing him and his soldiers to prepare for an important mission. At this moment, Rhine was studying a broken wand, now in two pieces on his desk, the very wand that had turned into the Emerald Viper last night. With the serpent's death, the wand had been destroyed, its magic temporarily lost. Yet, with a simple divination spell, Rhine quickly discerned the wand's original power. It could transform into a deadly viper, bypassing most magical defenses. Against powerful spellcasters, it would be an incredibly useful tool. I wonder if it can be repaired. Rhine pondered. In fairy tales, myths, epic sagas, and classical tales of gods and demons from both the East and the West, powerful magical artifacts often exceeded the abilities of their creators. Which made sense. If a magical item couldn't do something beyond its maker's capability, why create it in the first place? Without a doubt, in this fantasy world, a truly skilled mage needed practical magical tools. The tinderbox and its summoned dogs had already proven useful several times. But right now, the only magical item he and Aurora had was the tinderbox, and that wasn't enough. After confirming that the Enderland delegation wouldn't be causing trouble for the time being, Aurora eagerly urged, "Teacher, let's check on Ariel and Prince Eric. The king doesn't seem willing to let Prince Eric and Ariel marry. This is awful." Ryan placed his crystal ball on the desk, setting a button from Prince Eric's coat in front of it as a medium. He had deliberately brushed against the prince's coat earlier to ensure he could summon the button whenever needed. Just as the young magician was about to start chanting his spell, a polite knock sounded from outside the guest room. With a snap of his fingers, the door handle turned on its own, and the door swung open. Standing there were none other than Prince Eric and Ariel. Both of them looked utterly dejected. "What's wrong, Your Highness?" Rhine asked. "Did His Majesty refuse to approve your marriage with Ariel?" "That's right. My father told me that for royalty, a marriage based on love is a luxury. The person I marry must be the princess of Enderland." Prince Eric's face was as pale as death. Ariel had only seen him look this lifeless once before, on that stormy night when she had rescued him. "Why does it have to be like this? I don't object to an alliance between our two nations, but why does a sacred marriage have to be entangled in dirty politics? Why must I vow eternal devotion to someone I don't even know? I can't accept watching Ariel's heart shatter, leaving her to dissolve in a sea foam." Eric spoke in a rush, as if he needed to pour out all his emotions before they consumed him. "Did you tell your father what I revealed about Ariel's origins? That was why he sought a diviner in the first place, wasn't it?" Rhine asked. Last night, he had already received his payment for the divination, a generous amount of gold and silver coins. Now that the Enderland delegation is here, my father is too busy negotiating with them to care about this issue. I hinted that Ariel is actually a foreign princess, but he thought I was joking. Prince Eric sighed in frustration. Ariel sighed along with him, silently berating herself for being reckless and impulsive. I suppose it's time for me to give up. I really can't be with the prince. Why did I have to fall in love with a young prince of all people, she thought. After thinking it through, I've made my decision, Prince Eric declared. Ariel braced herself for his cruel verdict. Let's elope, Ariel. What? Ariel was stunned. Are you joking? You're the crown prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. I have a younger brother who's currently traveling abroad. He can take my place as the future king. Eric said with firm resolve. I'm not a politician. If I take the throne, I'll never be a good king. Aurora, who had been silently listening, felt a jolt in her heart. She, too, was the future ruler of a kingdom. What is a politician? Aurora asked. She already knew the definition, but she wanted to hear Eric's answer. A politician is someone who can ruthlessly sacrifice a group of people for a greater goal. They sacrifice the few for the many, the unimportant for the important, and they do it without emotional turmoil. Eric looked away, his voice growing softer. I respect them, and I know the world can't function without them, but I don't want to be one of them. Aurora lowered her head in deep thought, saying nothing more. Just then, Ariel grasped the prince's hand tightly, gazing into his dark eyes. No, my Eric, my prince. I can't just elope with you. I can't selfishly take away a young man who was meant to be king, leading you to some unknown temple to swear an eternal vow. What would your father think? If you suddenly disappeared one morning, he would be devastated. She froze as memories of her own family flooded her mind. She thought of the undersea palace, her sister's garden, the five of them holding hands and singing on the ocean's surface, the Sea King gripping his trident atop his throne, and her grand matron standing solemnly in the deep-sea palace, crowned in silver. She might never return to them. Even if she did marry Prince Eric, she would be bound to the human world forever. Back when she first came ashore, Ariel had longed for human life. But now, she finally understood the pain of losing something precious. Both the land and the sea were beautiful in their own ways. Why couldn't she have both? Ariel wanted it all. Eric chuckled. He could read Ariel's thoughts just by looking into her blue eyes. It's no different for what you did for me, Ariel. You abandoned everything in the sea to come to this land. You left your sisters, your father, and the beautiful palace beneath the deep blue ocean. So why is it any different if I do the same for you? Ariel shook her head. It's not the same, my prince. I'm a mermaid, born without an immortal soul. If I die, I'll turn into sea foam. But you're human. You don't need me to complete your soul, but I desperately need you. She suddenly felt ashamed of her selfishness. I'm asking Eric to abandon everything for me, just so I can obtain an immortal soul. That's not right, she whispered. Besides, where would we even run to? The king would find us before the day was over. At that moment, Aurora, who had been observing their exchange, grew suspicious. If he's really planning to elope, why would Prince Eric come a teacher? Just to inform a magician he barely knows? Or does he have another plan and needs teachers' help? Prince Eric smiled as he lifted the mermaid princess's hand high and held it in front of him. So let's elope to the sea. That way, you can return to your sisters and your father. Your family will see their princess has come home, bringing with her a handsome prince. What? Ariel was stunned. But you're human. You can't live in the sea. For humans, only the dead who sink to the ocean floor can reach my father's kingdom. The prince smiled. Normally, mermaids can't grow legs and walk on land, either. But here you are, standing before me, aren't you? Ariel was at a loss for words. That's exactly why I came to seek the magician's help. Prince Eric turned toward the silver-haired magician who had remained silent all this time and gave him a deep bow. Honorable magician, since you have a potion that let Ariel lose her tail and grow legs, could you also create one with the opposite effect? A potion that merges a human's ugly legs into a beautiful fishtail? Let me become a merman too. Ariel was utterly shocked. Then, she suddenly reacted. Wait, no. How do you even know that Rhine is? Yes, I am the magician who gave Ariel that potion in the deep sea, Rhine admitted openly. Back when he first met the prince, he had needed to maintain an air of neutrality, so he hadn't revealed that he already knew the mermaid princess. Just as if he were merely an impartial diviner, obeying the king's orders to uncover Ariel's identity. But now, there was no need to keep up that pretense. So, it was you after all. Prince Eric let out a sigh, a satisfied smirk of youthful triumph appearing on his face. When I watched the vision you projected, I noticed that the magician who gave Ariel the free potion had a blurred face, but a figure that resembled yours. In Omicron. Last night, Ariel and I talked a lot, and your name came up multiple times. She's terrible at lying. Her beautiful lips might not betray her, but her eyes do. Thank you, honorable magician. If not for your generosity in giving Ariel that potion, I never would have been able to hear her enchanting voice. Rhine gave a slight nod. Your Highness, as you suspected, I am indeed capable of creating a potion to turn a human into a merman. After all, my potion-making skills surpass those of the sea hag. If I can craft a potion that lets a fish grow human legs, then by using certain herbs from a forest, I can invert the potion's properties, merging a human's legs into a beautiful tail and granting them the ability to breathe underwater. But this potion only changes the body, not the soul. Ariel did not automatically gain an immortal soul when she became human, and likewise, Your Highness, even if you turn into a merman, you will still retain your original immortal soul, and you can share it with Ariel. However, even if she uses the potion to turn back into a mermaid, the curse placed upon her won't be lifted. Removing that curse would be far more difficult. Prince Eric listened carefully to Rhine's explanation. Then, the human prince gently took the mermaid princess's hand. That's wonderful. Ariel, did you hear that? Let's drink the potion together and become merfolk. We'll dive into the sea, swimming freely side by side. Last night, you told me so much about your time in the ocean. You spoke of your father's palace and your sister's gardens, of the pearls and seashells that adorn the Sea King's Grand Hall. You described how the stars and the sun look dimmer, yet larger when seen from the ocean, and how, when you look up and see a vast, dark shadow, it means a ship or a great whale is passing overhead. Such wonders, I can hardly even imagine them. I can't wait to see them for myself. When we return to the deep-sea palace as merfolk, your sisters and father will be overjoyed to see their little princess home. We will hold a grand wedding in the deep blue ocean, and all the merfolk will bless our union. You will be with your family once more. Ariel covered her mouth, unable to speak, her eyes misting over with emotion. My dear Ariel, there can be no better ending than this. Not even the greatest novelist could write a more perfect conclusion. Even if I had no betrothal to worry about, even if no one opposed our sacred union, even if tomorrow a royal herald rode across the kingdom announcing our engagement to the world, and even if, under a priest's witness, we held hands and vowed to be together for eternity, would that truly be the perfect ending for you? No, it wouldn't. My dear Ariel, in that scenario, you might gain love and an eternal, immortal soul, but you would forever lose your family and the homeland you once cherished. You would be bound to the human world and never return to the deep blue sea. I must thank my father and that Enderland princess, whom I've never met and was arranged to marry. They have given me a reason to escape this land-bound palace. I can go with you to the palace beneath the sea. I can meet your family and greet them. We will dance and sing together in the halls of the ocean, and in the end, we will become foam upon the waves. Ariel's voice trembled. She wanted to refuse him outright, but then images of her grandmother, her father, and her sisters surfaced in her mind. But, Eric, you would lose so much. You'd lose your strong, human legs and become something no longer human. You'd lose your noble status as a prince, leave your father and the kingdom of Western Asia forever, all just to be with me. Prince Eric chuckled. Isn't that exactly what you once did for me? Ariel was speechless. As the two gazed at each other with deep emotion, Rhine, completely oblivious to the romantic atmosphere, handed them 2 bottles of dark brown liquor. The potion to turn human legs into a fishtail is ready. So fast. Ariel was shocked. The more you practice, the faster you get. Rhine shrugged, patting the large dog he had just drawn blood from. This potion is different from the one before. It's not clear like water. It's bitter yet fragrant, like fine liquor. A mermaid only needs a simple reason to walk on land. But for a human to become a merfolk, there must be a deeper, more bittersweet story, just like this potion. Prince Eric took the potion with curiosity. Does this magical liquor have a name? I added mermaid tears as an ingredient, so maybe Pearl Tears Elegy. Ryan chuckled at his own joke. Just kidding. It has no name, nor does it need one. Rhine, my human friend, my honorable magician, you've helped us once again. I don't even know how to repay you. Ariel's voice was filled with gratitude. I'll let you know once I figure out what I want, Rhine said. Yet another favor owed. Rhine sighed inwardly. This magician of wishes sure had a knack for accumulating debts. Perhaps he should start considering how to cash them in. Holding their bottles of dark brown potion, Eric and Ariel exchanged a glance. Then, with a solemn expression, they turned to Rhine and asked, Honorable magician and prophet Rhine, you can see what we cannot, the future. When do you suggest we go to the shore, drink this potion, and dive into the sea together? Rhine shook his head. I don't recommend that you drink the potion and elope to the sea just yet. Last night, I foresaw that a turning point in your fate is about to arrive. You might as well wait a few days and see what this twist of fate brings before making a decision. Prince Eric and Ariel nodded, once again thanking the magician who had helped them so many times. Afterward, Ariel spent some time chatting with Aurora, sharing stories of her experiences on land. The 2 princesses, each with their own extraordinary journey, found much to talk about. It wasn't until later that the prince and his mermaid lover finally took their leave. Watching them go, Aurora replayed their conversation in her mind. Prince Eric said there was no better ending, no better future than the 2 of them transforming into merfolk, diving into the sea, and spending eternity together in the deep blue ocean. This way, Ariel can return her loved ones, and Eric won't have to remain bound by his father's expectations. Rhine chuckled, his unique sense of humor surfacing once again. Well, that's just because their imagination is lacking. Prince Eric and Ariel followed the magician's advice. They didn't drink the potion right away, but patiently waited a few days. During that time, Eric had a set of men's clothing made for Ariel, so she could ride alongside him. They rode through the woods, the green branches brushing against their shoulders while birds sang under the sunlight. They cherished every moment, knowing that these might be their last days on land. Ariel climbed mountains with Eric, gazing at the clouds and birds below. It reminded her of her days in the ocean, watching small fish swim beneath her as she hovered in the depths. Then, a few days later, on the very day the Enderland delegation set sail for home, fate's turning point arrived. The king summoned his son. My child, I've been reconsidering your engagement. How about this? You will take your attendants and sail to meet the Enderland princess. Perhaps, the moment you see her, you will fall helplessly in love. No one can predict matters of the heart. If, when you return, you still feel nothing for the princess, then I will reconsider your marriage. I may even grant you your freedom. Prince Eric was stunned. He had never expected his father to make such an offer. Wasn't this practically suggesting that if he truly had no interest in the princess, he wouldn't be forced into marriage? Thank you for your generosity, father. The prince expressed his gratitude. The magician was right. Fate really did take a turn. He may look like just a boy, but he's a genius of prophecy. However, Eric knew this didn't necessarily mean his father had truly changed his mind. He still had to consider the possibility of drinking the potion and eloping with Ariel. And with Dionysus knew. As the prince excitedly left, the king let out a small sigh, recalling what the Enderland envoys had told him before they departed. The Enderland envoys had assured him that there was no need to worry about his son's rebelliousness. They guaranteed that the only reason Eric had fallen for another was because he had yet to meet their beautiful princess. They even revealed that their kingdoms, which had prophesied, once the prince lays eyes on our princess, he will fall hopelessly in love. This entire dispute will become meaningless. For the prince of the Western Asia kingdom and the princess of Interland are destined to be together. No one can stand in the way. If that prophecy is true, then I have nothing to worry about. The king took a deep breath. However, just as he was about to put the matter aside, another thought crossed his mind. Speaking of prophecies, he suddenly remembered the diviner he had recruited, that grand magician from the Rose Kingdom, was still staying in his camp. I originally hired him to investigate that girl named Ariel's origins, but I've been too busy dealing with the Interland delegation to follow up on it. According to Eric, that magician actually uncovered something useful. At the very least, he confirmed that the girl's name was Ariel. But did he find out anything else? Wait, wasn't Eric in charge of this whole matter? If the magician truly discovered something valuable, why has Eric never brought it up? Could it be that Ariel's origins are too sensitive? So much so that Eric, having fallen for her, refuses to say a word about it. Lost in thought, the king immediately summoned Rhine. Soon, the silver-haired young magician stood before the king. Grand magician of the Rose Kingdom, wise sage from distant lands, the king addressed him with respect. I wish to ask you, did your divination reveal anything about this girl named Ariel? As a magician of some renown, Rhine was treated with great courtesy. The king knew all too well that those who offended powerful magicians rarely met a good end. Of course, your majesty, Rhine replied. The king's curiosity deepened. Then tell me, where does she come from? Why does she possess such a beautiful voice and such graceful dance? The sage of the Rose Kingdom answered truthfully. Ariel comes from a kingdom his majesty has never known. In that deep blue kingdom, every citizen possesses a heavenly singing voice and dances as lightly as a butterfly. Of course, even among them, Ariel is one of the most outstanding in both song and dance. I see. The king sounded a little disappointed. So Ariel's singing ability is just a natural talent, not the result of drinking from some blessed magical spring or taking an elixir. That meant he couldn't replicate this talent. A kingdom I've never known, perhaps never even heard of? It must be in a far, far away place. The king had no doubt that there were distant kingdoms in the world he had yet to discover. This continent held far too many secrets, countless unexplored lands. His curiosity about the kingdom Rhine spoke of grew. Honorable magician, can you tell me more about that kingdom? If your divination magic can glimpse fragments of that land, perhaps I may have heard of it before. Rhine smiled and described it poetically. When I divined Ariel's origins, I saw breathtaking sights of that kingdom. The ground is covered in fine white sand, with strange trees and plants growing all around. Tiny, multicolored creatures, unlike anything seen here, dart joyfully through the branches. The grandest structure in that kingdom is their palace. Its walls are built from coral, while its tall, pointed windows are crafted from the finest amber. The palace is adorned with countless large, luminous pearls, any one of which could be the most extravagant decoration on Her Majesty's royal crown. These beautiful things, which are worth a fortune in the Western Asia kingdom, are nothing more than ordinary trinkets there. Even common children play with them as toys. The king listened, utterly mesmerized, as if he were experiencing a dream. What a remarkable kingdom, he murmured. If only we could trade with them. If they consider such things ordinary, we could buy them cheaply and sell them to other nations for a fortune. We could make the entire Western Asia kingdom wealthy beyond imagination. But almost immediately, the king abandoned the idea, sighing in frustration. Unfortunately, that kingdom must be unimaginably far away, with little to no contact with other nations. Otherwise, their prices wouldn't be so strange. There's simply no way they could engage and trade with us. Setting aside thoughts of that distant, dreamlike kingdom, the king finally voiced his real concern. Honorable magician, foreign sage, perhaps you are unaware, My son, Prince Eric, has been utterly captivated by that girl from the dreamlike kingdom, Ariel. However, he is supposed to marry the princess of our neighboring country. Prince Eric is scheduled to visit that neighboring princess soon. Tell me, will he change his mind? As an exceptional prophet and seer, you can surely see far more than an ordinary man like me. The king deliberately used the term neighboring country rather than Enderland, knowing that the magician's homeland had once suffered an invasion by Enderland. Ryan theatrically rubbed his crystal ball, his silver eyes glowing faintly. After a long pause, the young magician finally spoke his prophecy. I see it, I see it. I see the future. In the near future, His Highness Prince Eric will surely marry the youngest princess of the neighboring kingdom. They will fall in love at first sight, their passion for each other undeniable. Their marriage will be a testament to the friendship between their nations. All the people of both kingdoms will celebrate and bless their union. Hearing the prophecy, the king let out a long sigh of relief. The heavy weight on his heart was finally lifted. Both the Witch of Enderland and the Sage of the Rose Kingdom, two court magicians of extraordinary skill, have foreseen that Prince Eric will love and marry the neighboring princess. This means that once Prince Eric sails to meet the young princess of Enderland, his feelings will undoubtedly change. There's nothing for me to worry about. Feeling quite pleased, the king thought to himself. He then rewarded the magician with a generous sum of gold and silver before dismissing him. As Ryan stepped out of the grand hall, a smirk curled at the corners of his lips. It seems I have quite the talent for being a charlatan. I'm really getting the hang of this whole prophet act. Prophecies, after all, were one thing in words, and entirely another in how people interpreted them. In any case, the Sea King and his forces are already prepared. Now we just wait for the right moment, Ryan mused inwardly. Being a prophet or seer in this continent was quite an advantageous identity. People assumed such figures were objective and neutral, never realizing that prophets had their own interests. Whether it was the reception he had received from Prince Eric last time, or today's royal summons, Ryan had fully grasped the essence of being a seer, maintain the illusion of neutrality while feeding information to clients. In reality, everything was staged behind the scenes. How could a prophecy not come true when everything was already orchestrated? Prince Eric eagerly shared the good news with Ariel. He kissed her lips and held her tightly in his arms. My father has agreed to let me visit the princess of Enderland. He said that if I truly have no interest in her, he might consider allowing our marriage. I have never been so eager to meet this Enderland princess, because I know that all I have to do is reject her. I could bring companions with me. My dear Ariel, come with me. Ariel, however, was a little uneasy. Why would your father make such a proposal? Is he so certain that your feelings will change after meeting the princess? Hearing this, the prince suddenly felt something was off. Could it be that once we arrive in Enderland, we'll be forcibly detained? That we won't be allowed to leave until I agree to marry the princess? That sounded a bit far-fetched, but not entirely impossible. They discussed the possibilities and ultimately made a pact. If things truly become irreversible, we will drink the potion and leap into the sea together. We will become merfolk. Together with a large entourage, Prince Eric and Ariel boarded a magnificent ship bound for Enderland. As the vessel sailed across the waves, Ariel and the prince talked endlessly about the sea. They spoke of its tranquil surface and raging storms, the strange fish that dwelled beneath, and what divers might see in the ocean's depths. To the attendants around them, it simply seemed like a young prince chatting with a girl he had rescued about their experiences at sea. Only the two lovers knew. They were really discussing the place they were about to enter. The old Witch of Enderland was overjoyed when she heard that the prince of the Western Asia Kingdom was sailing toward their shores. She had known from the start that the young princess of Enderland was the very girl who had saved the prince during the shipwreck, an encounter she had carefully orchestrated. Ariel was nothing more than an emotional substitute. Once the prince met the princess, fate would be sealed. The young and unsuspecting princess had been studying royal etiquette in a distant temple, as was required of all Enderland royalty. Now, She was sailing home to meet her foreign suitor. Though she was the youngest princess of Enderland, she was still 2 years older than Ariel. A true beauty with delicate, snow-white skin. The old witch brushed the princess's hair and sprinkled fragrant spices upon her. My dear princess, tomorrow you will meet the prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. I have adorned you with an enchanting fragrance. No man will be able to resist you. They will be utterly bewitched. Take this packet of spices. Use it every day, and you will always remain irresistible and full of charm. The old witch was not lying. What she didn't tell the princess was that prolonged exposure to this intoxicating magical fragrance would warp a man's mind, ensnaring him in the darkness of her spell until he became her puppet, bound to her will. The princess knew nothing of these political schemes. She had no idea that her fate had been carefully planned out long ago. She didn't know that she was merely another hidden weapon in her father's quest for continental domination, or that she was a tool for the court witch's growing influence within the coven. I am ready to meet the foreign prince, the princess said. She had no interest in this prince she had never met, but as a royal princess, she understood that she was merely a bargaining chip on her father's table. She had no right to choose. She knew in her heart who she truly loved. In the past, under the old witch's guidance, she had traveled to a temple deep in the forest to learn the virtues and etiquette of royalty. One early morning, just as the first light of dawn painted the sky, she had stepped out of the temple, basking in the gentle morning glow, only to see a handsome young man lying on the shore, pale as death. He must have been caught in a terrible shipwreck and washed ashore by the waves. She had called for help, rousing the young man and summoning others to save him. Then, without another word, she had turned and left. It was a fleeting encounter, but it had left an imprint on her heart. To this day, she had no idea who that beautiful young man was. But from his sea-soaked yet luxurious silk clothing, he was surely the son of a noble family. With a longing heart, she lifted her gaze toward the distant horizon. A magnificent wooden ship was approaching from afar, carrying the prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. At dawn's first light, the grand ship of the Western Asia Kingdom sailed into the royal harbor of Enderland. The bells of the clock tower rang out. The melody of harps drifted from the high towers. Soldiers saluted with gleaming bayonets. The royal herald raised the fluttering banners. Just before Prince Eric stepped off the ship to meet the 7th princess of Enderland as planned, he sought out Ariel one last time. "Ariel, you still have that potion, don't you? The one that will restore your beautiful tail?" the prince asked. "I will leave now, but I will return to this ship within 3 days. Tylen Bot S." He continued, "If I do not return on time, something may have happened. Perhaps I will be forced to stay until I accept the Enderland princess as my bride. It's possible that this was arranged between my father and Enderland in secret. If the sun sets for the 3rd time and I still haven't come back, drink the potion and leap into the sea. The water will restore your tail. And I will do the same. I will drink the potion in secret and jump into the ocean. We will meet beneath the waves. Our meeting place is beneath this very ship. Then you will take me to the palace of the deep. Everyone, my father and the rest, will believe we drowned together in a tragic act of love. They will think my dutiful younger brother has finally taken my place as crown prince of the Western Asia Kingdom. But no one will know that in the depths of the sea, we will be singing and dancing together. No one will expect that in the deep blue palace beneath the ocean, we will swear our love and share an immortal soul." Ariel nodded softly, tightening her grip on the small bottle of brown potion. She agreed to the prince's plan. "Oh, Eric, if you find yourself in trouble, perhaps this will help you." The mermaid princess handed the prince a small, smooth silver mirror. It was a gift from a magician Rhine, given to her when she first left the deep blue ocean. A magical artifact that could summon Rhine's aid, no matter how far away he was. Ariel had never used it before, but perhaps Eric would need it today. If you speak into the mirror and tell it your troubles, Rhine will hear you, no matter the distance. Prince Eric thanked Ariel, waved farewell, and stepped off the grand ship. At the lavish welcome banquet, Prince Eric finally met the Princess of Enderland. It's you. When her eyes landed on that familiar face, the Princess of Enderland was so stunned she could hardly believe it. And when those around her confirmed that this man was indeed the Prince of the Western Asia Kingdom, she nearly thought she was dreaming. Had she longed for him so much that her mind was now playing tricks on her? Prince Eric, do you remember me? When your body was cold and lifeless on the shore, I was the one who woke you. The princess was overcome with excitement. I never knew that the boy I saved was the Prince of the Western Asia Kingdom, my own betrothed. I never dared to dream of seeing you again. The most beautiful, impossible wish I have ever longed for has now come true. This must be fate, a beautiful encounter destined by the heavens. She spoke in a breathless rush. Standing nearby, the old witch watched in satisfaction, waiting for the prince and princess to fall madly in love. She knew that Prince Eric was someone who adored romantic tales. Now, the girl who had once saved his life stood before him again, his very own betrothed. A prince and a princess, a savior and the one she rescued. A fleeting encounter that had haunted them for years, now brought together once more. Could there be a more perfect love story? The princess spread her arms wide, eager to embrace him. But Prince Eric remained still. He did not step forward to meet her open arms. His dark eyes gleamed under the palace lights, and a faint, polite smile graced his lips. "Your Highness, I am truly surprised to see you here," he said gently. "I remember you. When I lay on the shore, barely clinging to life, you were the one who saved me. I have never forgotten you, nor the kindness you showed me that day. I am grateful to fate for bringing us together here. Without it, I would have lost my chance to personally thank my savior." His voice was sincere, his emotions genuine, yet there was no fire, no passion, nothing that lovers should have for each other. "Thank you. I will never forget your kindness, and I will find a way to repay this debt." He placed a hand over his heart and performed a flawless royal bow. "But please forgive me, beautiful princess, my dear savior. I cannot accept your love." The princess froze in shock, unable to believe what she had just heard. His words were like a bolt of lightning, striking her heart. Why? She abandoned all the royal etiquette she had been taught in the temple and demanded an answer. Prince Eric gently took her hand, looking into her sapphire blue eyes with unwavering resolve. "Because I have already given my heart to another. Like you, she once saved me. When I drifted like a lifeless corpse in the freezing ocean, she was the one who pulled me from the depths. But unlike you and me, she and I have shared much more than a single encounter. We have gone through so much together. She has sacrificed everything to be with me, and I am willing to do the same for her. I love her more than anyone else in this world. I would stand before a priest, place my hand upon her heart, and swear an oath of eternal love." He smiled gently. "So do not be sad, beautiful princess. You are kind, wise, and noble. One day, you will meet a prince far more handsome, intelligent, and worthy of being a future king. Unlike me, an immature dreamer with his head in the clouds." Beta. The princess stood frozen, her eyes burning with unshed tears. She felt like a statue, struck by the cruelest words she had ever heard. Oh gods, how can fate be so cruel? In a single moment, I experienced both the greatest joy and the deepest sorrow. I thought I had stepped into paradise, only to fall into an abyss the next second. In her heart, the princess of Enderland wept. The old witch, too, was stunned. She had watched with her own eyes as Prince Eric rejected the princess of Enderland. That girl, Ariel, the one with the beautiful voice, had enchanted the prince this deeply? Impossible. Wasn't she supposed to be nothing more than a replacement for his true love? Wait, something is very wrong. The girl named Ariel, did she really save Prince Eric from the sea? A sudden realization struck the old witch. She rushed out of the banquet hall and into her private library. Feverishly, she flipped through every book that recorded magic and ancient secrets. Her dry fingers swept through the dusty pages, the sound of rustling paper echoing in the dimly lit chamber. The flickering candlelight cast long, eerie shadows of her hunched figure onto the stone walls. To rescue someone from the raging sea, to possess an unparalleled singing voice, to dance as gracefully as a fish in water. Only merfolk can meet all of these conditions. That girl, Ariel, she might be a mermaid. Damn it, my entire plan ruined by a stray mermaid. The old witch clenched her teeth in fury. But then a strange doubt crept into her mind. Yet that girl, Ariel, she looks completely human. At the very least, she has human legs. But in a world of magic, nothing is impossible. Fueled by suspicion, she flipped through book after book, searching desperately for answers. She snatched dusty tomes from the shelves, skimming their pages before tossing them aside. And then, her eyes lit up. Found it. The book in her hands described an ancient magic. It stated that there were spells and potions capable of transforming a mermaid's tail into human legs. But there's a reason no one has ever seen a mermaid do this before. The book revealed a long-forgotten secret. Mermaids were lowly creatures without immortal souls. If a mermaid were to take on human form, the world itself would reject and curse them. And the curse was absolute. On the first dawn after the one they love marries another, their heart would shatter. Their body would dissolve into sea foam. The old witch's fingers trembled with excitement. A wicked grin spread across her face. This means, if I force Prince Eric to marry the princess of Enderland right away, that meddling mermaid will die on the spot. At the royal harbor of Enderland, two children appeared on the streets. One a silver-haired boy, the other a golden-haired girl. I have a question, teacher, Aurora asked, looking up. If you don't actually want Prince Eric and Ariel to elope into the sea, then why did you create a potion that turns humans into merfolk? Throughout their journey, Aurora had come to realize something. Though her blessings had granted her an exceptional talent, she was still too young, too inexperienced. Much of the knowledge she had learned from books remained just that, dead knowledge, impractical and difficult to apply. The blessing had enhanced her memory, but it had not directly increased her intelligence. There was still so much she needed to learn. Aurora thought to herself, that potion isn't truly meant to let them elope into the sea, Ryan replied. Huh, then what's it for? Aurora asked, puzzled. Fate is a funny thing, Ryan chuckled. There's an old saying in a distant land. The will of heaven must not be revealed. And he was telling the truth. Prophecy was bound by countless limitations. It required a medium, only provided vague fragments of the future, and above all, revealing certain details to others could distort their accuracy. Fate truly is strange, Ryan mused as he gazed at the drifting clouds in the sky. He still remembered when he first advised the king of the Rose Kingdom to invite the Black Witch, thinking it would prevent the infamous event where she stormed in uninvited in a fit of rage. Yet fate found another way. Maleficent still became furious over something else and cast her curse regardless. Likewise, when Grandma Rosa searched for the tinderbox, she had deliberately kept the information from others, unknowingly preventing any warnings, ensuring that the soldier ultimately obtained it. It was as if some events were destined to happen no matter what. These two incidents had been a harsh lesson for Ryan. He had once believed he could easily change fate. But now, with his newfound prophetic powers granted by the crystal ball, he had sensed something even greater. For an outsider like himself, fate possessed an overwhelming self-correcting force. Certain critical moments, scenes so fundamental that changing them would unravel the entire story, seemed impossible to truly alter. Even if he attempted to forcefully interfere, the world itself would twist events to ensure they still took place. But that doesn't mean fate is unchangeable, Ryan thought. From his past failures, he had learned a better method. Rather than preventing these critical events outright, rather than fighting fate head-on, which would only lead to unintended consequences, the key was to ensure that while these events appeared to happen as they should, their true outcomes were entirely different from the original fate. For example, changing the nature of Aurora's blessing had been one such approach. Fate can be deceived. Ryan couldn't help but smile at the thought. I suspect we'll soon hear the news that Prince Eric and the Princess of Enderland are getting married, Ryan said. What? Aurora was stunned. But that's impossible. Prince Eric would never agree to the marriage. And Enderland has no reason to force him, right? Oh, no reason. Ryan flipped his hand, revealing a small amount of shimmering powder in his palm. Earlier, I transformed into a bird and secretly inspected the cosmetics used by the Princess of Enderland. That's when I found something strange. I used divination to analyze them. These powders are ground from enchanted herbs and imbued with powerful spells. The magic only affects men. If Prince Eric is exposed to this fragrance for long enough, he will become a puppet under the caster's control. Aurora's expression turned grave. So their so-called alliance through marriage is nothing but a cover for an even darker scheme. We have to warn the king of the Western Asia Kingdom. Ryan shook his head. Other people, including ordinary diviners and magicians, would never detect the hidden magic within the scent. Even I wouldn't have discovered it without my crystal ball's assistance. One piece of evidence isn't enough. Enderland can simply deny it. They'll claim it's just a magician's baseless accusation. The alliance will continue as planned. Aurora frowned in concern, lost in thought. Then what should we do? Think about it. Prince Eric will surely reject the marriage. But that old witch of Enderland will never allow that to happen. Ryan smiled. They'll soon start making mistakes. They'll be the ones to hand us all the evidence we need. If our plan succeeds, we won't just prevent this unholy alliance between the Western Asia Kingdom and Enderland. We will also shatter the prejudices that humans hold against merfolk. The old witch found the heartbroken princess crying in her chambers. My dear princess, do not despair. I have long heard that Prince Eric of the Western Asia Kingdom is a rebellious youth. Perhaps he is deceiving you. Perhaps he merely made up a non-existent lover to escape his father's arrangement. The princess's sobbing quieted. She lifted her tear-streaked face, her sapphire blue eyes filled with hesitation. Really, you can test him yourself, the old witch said, handing the princess a bottle of wine. It is often said that people only speak the truth when they are drunk. Offer the prince this fine liquor from my personal collection. Once he is intoxicated, ask him again, does this mysterious lover of his truly exist? The old witch gently whispered, my dear princess, I suspect that you are the one he truly loves. The Princess of Enderland accepted the wine. All right, I suppose it's worth trying. She wiped away her tears and left her room to seek out Prince Eric. Watching the princess's departing figure, the old witch grinned wickedly. She had laced the wine with a powerful potion, one that could permanently erase a single memory from the drinker's mind. The moment Prince Eric drank it, he would forget Ariel forever. I really spared no expense in preparing this potion, the old witch muttered to herself. Over the past days, she had consumed far too many of her precious magical resources. A rare resurrection spell, a wand capable of transforming into a venomous serpent, and a vast stockpile of treasured ingredients. The books say that even after losing one's memories, a person may regain them if they experience a powerful emotional shock. If that girl named Ariel were to appear before Prince Eric again, singing a mermaid song, declaring her love for him, she might awaken his memories and remind him of who she truly is. That must never happen. Ariel must be contained. She must not be allowed anywhere near Prince Eric. We must hurry and complete the wedding between Prince Eric and the princess. At the dawn of their wedding day, Ariel will turn into sea foam and vanish forever. As soon as that troublesome mermaid dissolves into the waves, there will be no one left to wake Prince Eric from his trance. The old witch felt more and more satisfied with her plan. Just a mermaid, without magic, without power. No matter what status she held in the sea, she's alone on land. How could she possibly fight against me when I have the full support of Enderland behind me? That evening, a group of Enderland's finest warriors strode toward the grand ship of the Western Asia Kingdom. Each of them was a warrior fierce enough to wrestle a tiger with their bare hands. They wore gleaming armor, adorned with elaborate crests, their swords hanging sharply at their waists. As they moved, the sunlight glinted off their polished metal, making them appear even more formidable. The warriors of Enderland claimed they merely wished to tour the grand and beautiful ship, to host a banquet aboard it in celebration of the meeting between the prince and princess. The ship's crew saw no reason to refuse and welcomed them aboard. But the moment Ariel caught sight of the warriors, an inexplicable dread filled her heart. Something about them felt wrong. She couldn't shake the feeling that all of them were watching her. Watching her cabin. As the sun dipped below the horizon, another grand banquet began. During the feast, the princess poured Prince Eric a drink, the very wine that the old witch had given her. As the burning liquor coursed down his throat, Prince Eric felt a dizzying intoxication take hold. His very soul and mind seemed to waver. The memories he had once thought unforgettable, etched into his heart like sacred scripture, began to fade as if they had been written on the sand, only to be washed away by the tide. He forgot the way she had held his hand as they watched the sunrise and sunset, their shadows stretching long across the palace floor. Forgot how she had once stood in the grand hall, singing so beautifully that his hands had turned red from clapping too hard. Forgot how, through the crystal ball, he had seen a stormy night where a brave little mermaid risked her life, dodging a falling mast to pull him from the wreckage. And forgot the times they had ridden horseback together, the branches brushing against their shoulders as they galloped through emerald forests. Forgot how they had sat on the edge of the ship during their journey to Enderland, gazing at the endless blue sea, dreaming of a future where they would grow mermaid tails and elope beneath the waves. Forgot her. Forgot their promise. Forgot the potion that would transform his legs back into a tail. It still lay in his bag, but to his clouded mind, it was nothing more than an ordinary bottle of fine liquor. Seeing that the prince was thoroughly drunk, the princess of Enderland eagerly asked, "Prince Eric, tell me, do you truly love someone else? Someone you love more than me?" The prince's deep black eyes were hazy with intoxication. The bewitching fragrance, the memory-erasing potion, and the wine itself all worked together to cloud his senses. Suddenly, he pointed at the princess of Enderland. "What were you talking about?" "Of course, the person I love most is you. When I lay on the shore like a lifeless corpse, it was you who saved me." Hearing his words, the princess was overjoyed, as if she had been lifted from the depths of despair back into paradise. The old witch, standing beside her, smiled wickedly. "You see, the prince's true love is you. There is no need to wait, no reason to delay. His Majesty has spoken. You two must be married at once. You are a match made in heaven." But in reality, there was only one thing that truly mattered: ensuring that the prince and princess were wed, and making sure that the mermaid girl turned into sea foam. As long as that troublesome mermaid disappeared from existence, no one would ever be able to wake Prince Eric again. The bells of the temple began to toll. A royal herald rode through the streets, loudly proclaiming the news. Prince Eric and the Princess of Enderland would be wed that very night. The people of the capital city could hardly believe their ears. They had expected the royal wedding to take weeks, perhaps even months, to plan. Never had a noble wedding been arranged so hastily. It was unheard of for a royal couple to meet only days before walking down the aisle. Yet now, within just an hour of the prince's agreement, he and the princess were to stand before the temple priest and swear an eternal oath. Some citizens speculated that the prince and princess were so deeply in love that they simply couldn't wait. That tonight's ceremony would be a simple affair, with grander celebrations to follow. Others whispered that the prince and princess must have met long ago, and the wedding date had already been set in secret, only now revealed to the public. Even the princess herself was unsure why her father had insisted on such an urgent ceremony. But she knew she had no right to question it. From the moment she was born, her father had already planned out her entire life. To be able to marry the one she loved was already more than she had dared to hope for. Aboard the Western Asia Kingdom's ship, Ariel overheard the news of the engagement. She heard the royal herald's announcement on horseback and the hushed whispers of the crew discussing the prince's sudden wedding. "Have you heard? Prince Eric is getting married to that beautiful little princess of Enderland tonight." The court attendants rejoiced. Their rebellious prince had finally accepted his father's arrangement and agreed to marry the neighboring princess. But some were skeptical. They had seen with their own eyes how deeply Prince Eric and Ariel loved each other. Ariel herself was so shocked that she could barely speak. How could this be? Eric only left a few hours ago. How could he possibly be getting married tonight? I've never heard of such a rushed, hasty, and strange wedding. Something is definitely wrong here. Something must have happened to Eric. Someone must have forced him into this or done something to him. Ariel realized she had to leave. She had to get off this ship and see Prince Eric with her own eyes to make sure he was safe. As she stepped out of the cabin, she was blocked by a strong, battle-hardened warrior from Enderland. "You can't leave. I've been given orders. No matter what, you must stay here," he said. "The bride and groom are about to join hands. If you show up now, Princess Her Highness will surely be heartbroken." Ariel's frustration boiled over. "I don't care about any orders. This is a Western Asia kingdom ship. You have no right to keep me here," she shouted, her anger flaring. She called upon the ship's crew. These were Prince Eric's personal attendants, palace servants of the Western Asia kingdom, and a handful of its soldiers. They would help her. Several crew members stepped forward, attempting to reason with the Enderland warriors. But the warriors stood firm, forming an impenetrable line. "Don't think we don't know about the scandal between this girl and your prince," one of them sneered. "Now that your master is marrying our princess, it's time to let the past go. If this commoner girl, with no noble blood and no proper background, were to step off this ship, crash the wedding, and interrupt the sacred moment under the priest's witness, wouldn't that be a disgrace?" Ng. Though their reasoning sounded somewhat logical, the crew members couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Everything about today felt strange, especially this rushed and suspicious wedding. But when they saw the imposing figures of the Enderland warriors, their gleaming armor, and their sharp weapons, they hesitated. "Good. That's how it should be," the warriors muttered. "As long as Ariel doesn't show up, Prince Eric will never regain his senses." In the wedding temple, the old witch peered through the window at the scene unfolding on the ship in the distant harbor. A wicked grin stretched across her wrinkled face. What she didn't realize was that her entire plan, to turn Ariel into sea foam, was doomed from start, because her fundamental premise was completely wrong. Inside the Western Asia Kingdom's palace. "What? My son agreed to marry the Princess of Enderland." The king of the Western Asia Kingdom was stunned by the news. In this world, magic made long-distance communication instantaneous. "That's right, your majesty," a messenger confirmed. The Enderland court, which used an incredible spell to relay this message. "The Princess of Enderland is the same girl who saved Prince Eric during that dreadful shipwreck on the stormy night." As soon as Prince Eric saw her again, he fell madly in love with her. The court, which also said the wedding is about to take place, and asks that your majesty hurry to bless the couple. Seated on his throne, the king sighed in awe of fate's intricate design. "The prophecy has come true. My son is really going to marry the neighboring princess." Speaking of which, that magician from the Rose Kingdom left in a hurry yesterday. By now, he must be far away. I wonder where that little magician is now. What is he up to? His prophecy came true. I should have hosted a feast for him. The king turned to his attendants and gave an order. "Prepare the grandest ship. I will sail there myself to witness Prince Eric's wedding and the alliance between our two nations." This had been planned from the start. If Prince Eric accepted the marriage, the blessed couple would wed in Enderland's royal capital. The king of the Western Asia Kingdom was to attend and negotiate the alliance terms with the Enderland emperor. The only thing the king hadn't expected was how quickly Eric had agreed. And from the fragmented message delivered by the old witch, the wedding seemed to be happening far too fast. He had assumed that such an important event would require careful planning and preparation. But, your majesty, the weather along the route between the Western Asia Kingdom and Enderland's capital hasn't been great these past few days. We may run into storms on the way. No need to worry about that. Just make haste. I hope we're not too late," the king urged. He boarded the grandest and most lavish ship. A carefully selected group of elite guards escorted the king, their gleaming weapons at the ready. The roaring sea wind lashed against the king's face as towering waves surged. With the sound of ceremonial cannon fire, the magnificent ship set sail from the Western Asia Kingdom's harbor. The wind was strong today. The gales whipped through the sails, and the churning waves made the ship lurch violently. Wine spilled from the goblets of the attendants, and sailors occasionally slipped on the deck as they rushed about. As the grand vessel sailed across the vast and turbulent sea, no one noticed the shadows moving beneath the water surface. Now and then, something seemed to rise from the depths, but whenever the sailors looked, it disappeared. They thought the flashes of white they saw were nothing more than sea foam. In the deep blue sea, great Sea King, just as magician Rhine prophesied, the king of the Western Asia Kingdom has set sail, and the storm clouds are already forming. The scout reported eagerly. A terrifying storm is brewing in those waters. Beneath the deep blue waves, a merfolk scout swam toward the Sea King, his excitement evident. The Sea King held his golden trident firmly in hand. He was clad in armor made of pearls and seashells, his head crowned with a regal diadem. His imposing presence commanded respect. Behind him, countless merfolk stood at attention, awaiting the command of their oceanic ruler. They had waited far too long for this moment. At last, the time has come, the Sea King declared to his people. For 1,000 years, we have waited. This is our chance to forge a friendship with the humans, our chance to make them understand us once more. The Sea King's voice surged with passion. For centuries, the humans of the land have viewed us as cursed monsters. They believe our songs summon storms or lure sailors to their doom, deliberately guiding ships into treacherous currents and deadly reefs. When their ships pass above our kingdom, if a sailor so much as glimpses us, they fire poisoned arrows our way. Because in their hearts, we are nothing more than inhuman creatures that bring calamity. But I know you, my chosen ones. You are the merfolk who love humanity the most, who long to understand the world above more than anyone else. Just like my brave daughter, Princess Ariel, who ventured on a land before us. You, too, are curious and eager to see that world with your own eyes. Today, we will finally have the chance to erase these prejudices with our own power. The magician has promised. He can give merfolk legs to walk on land, just as he can grant humans tails to swim in the sea. A single pearl from our waters is worth a fortune on land, and yet the human world holds countless things we cannot produce, silken garments, delicacies from livestock. If we succeed, there will no longer be a barrier between the sea and the land. The Sea King vividly recalled the prophecy given by Rhine when he returned to the deep sea palace a few days ago. That scene played out once more in his mind. Great King of the Sea, I have foreseen that in the near future, the king of the Western Asia Kingdom will set sail. Out on the ocean, they will encounter an unprecedented storm. Towering waves will shatter their ships and swallow them whole. I cannot determine the exact moment this fate will unfold, but I know it is not far off. And this will be your opportunity. Once, a princess of the sea saved a prince of the land and won his heart. Now, the king of the sea will have his chance to do the same, to show the land's ruler the true nature of the merfolk. The Sea King rose to the water's surface, gazing up at the darkening sky. The clouds grew denser, heavier, their ominous presence casting shadows upon the sea. Silver lightning slithered across the heavens, and that ominous storm cloud crept ever closer to the grand ship carrying the king of the Western Asia Kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder rumbled, like 1,000 cannons firing in the sky. Meanwhile, in the royal capital of Enderland, celebratory cannon fire echoed across the city. Golden and violet banners fluttered high in the air, marking this sacred and romantic occasion. Inside the temple, the scent of fragrant oils burned in exquisite lamps atop the altar. Joyful music filled the air. Bridesmaids, dressed in delicate silken robes, carried the flowing veil of the Princess of Enderland as she walked. Hand in hand, the bride and groom stood before the priest, receiving his blessings. But at that moment, from somewhere in the distance, a sorrowful yet passionate song rang out. Carried by the wind, the voice drifted into Prince Eric's ears. The song of the mermaid princess. The moment the ethereal melody reached him, Prince Eric, still under the haze of intoxication, began to tremble. His breath hitched. A sharp pain shot through his head. His finely sculpted features twisted in agony, his hands clutching his temples as if his skull were about to crack open. Our Excellentess, my head, it hurts so much. A memory, something forbidden, something buried deep, was clawing its way back to the surface. He didn't know why, but this song, it stirred something within him. What Eric failed to realize was that this was the very same song Ariel had sung to him days ago, in the grand hall of the palace. A song about love. Sadness welled up in his chest, his vision blurring as his eyes grew hot. But why? Was today not meant to be a joyous occasion? Was he not supposed to be overjoyed at reuniting with the girl who had saved him? Then why did he feel this sorrow? Who was he mourning for? Under the combined influence of alcohol, enchanted incense, and the magic of forgetfulness, Eric's mind was sluggish, unable to think clearly. But his ears no longer registered the jubilant music of the temple. His eyes could no longer focus on the sacred wedding ceremony before him. All he wanted was to hear that song, this sorrowful yet beautiful melody. Then, as if possessed, he suddenly abandoned the veiled bride beside him and dashed toward the window. Like a madman, he pressed against the frame, staring out toward the distant harbor, toward the grand ship of the Western Asia Kingdom. Gasps filled the temple. The priests were stunned. The elegantly dressed princess of Enderland stood frozen in place. Before their very eyes, the groom of the evening had abandoned his bride to weep at the window. "You, why are you crying, my prince?" The young princess' voice trembled in fear. A sense of unease crept over her. Something about today felt terribly wrong. "This is bad," the old witch thought grimly. "My men have restrained Ariel on the ship, but she can still sing. And she has a voice that is perfect, even by merfolk standards. I cannot let Prince Eric keep listening. If he hears too much, his memories will return. I just need to hold out until dawn, until that mermaid dissolves into white foam." But the old witch had not come unprepared. Her gaze flickered toward the far corner of the temple, toward a magnificent full-length mirror, which had been discreetly transported into the chamber by soldiers under her command. That mirror was no ordinary decoration. It was a tool of sorcery, imbued with ancient magic, a contingency plan she had prepared in advance. As the guests and priests stood in bewildered silence, trying to understand the prince's strange behavior, the old witch quietly rose to her feet. She strode toward the mirror, murmuring an incantation under her breath. "Last time, I traveled to the Western Asia Kingdom and was careless. I was slain once and lost my ability to revive for some time. But this time is different. This is Enderland's royal capital, my domain. Here, I hold countless trump cards. I command Enderland's warriors. I have access to the world's most hidden archives, storerooms filled with thousands of magical herbs, enchanted relics, ritual-bound locations, and spell-infused structures. And most importantly, the Emperor of Enderland himself is here. He is one of the rarest of legendary warriors, ruler of one of the most powerful nations in the Western continent. If trouble arises, he will undoubtedly support me. Unless someone of Maleficent's level intervenes, no one in this city can oppose me alone." As these thoughts raced through her mind, she completed the spell. A ghostly light shimmered across the surface of the full-length mirror. The ghostly glow on the mirror extinguished in an instant. It seemed as if nothing had happened, and yet the song that had drifted from the harbor vanished. Not just that, the sounds of the city, the celebratory cannon fire, the distant chatter of the crowds, all of it disappeared. Inside the wedding temple, only the sacred wedding music remained. The joyous melody filled the air, completely replacing the sorrowful yet romantic song that had once floated in through the window. The song outside is gone? No. It's like everything outside has gone completely silent. That was how it felt to those within the temple. But if someone were standing outside, looking in through the temple doors, they would see something unsettling. The temple was now utterly empty. The groom and bride, dressed in their luxurious garments, gone. The bridesmaids carrying the veil, gone. The priests holding their ceremonial candles, gone. The only person left within the temple was the old witch. A slow, triumphant smile crept across her face as she turned toward the full-length mirror in the corner of the temple. She peered into its surface, examining the scene inside with amusement. Within the mirror, everything remained exactly as before. The temple was still lively. The prince, clutching his head in pain. The bride, gently patting his back, whispering reassurances. The bridesmaids and groomsmen, flustered and confused. The priests, murmuring among themselves, unsure of what was happening. I've temporarily moved the entire wedding into the mirror world. They're all inside a replica of this temple, created by my magic. Now, Prince Eric cannot leave the ceremony, and no one from outside can interfere. Once I take this mirror away, no one will be able to find them. Even the most advanced divination and sorcery cannot locate a wedding that doesn't exist in the real world. Unless, of course, there's a magical artifact inside specifically designed to contact the outside. But this is Enderland's royal capital. I have a powerful warrior at my command. Even if someone does find the mirror, it won't matter. The old witch let out a cackling laugh and turned toward the window. That damn mermaid was still singing. Her voice, filled with longing and sorrow, continued to drift through the night. Sing, you wretched little mermaid. Sing until your voice breaks, the old witch sneered. Prince Eric will never hear you. Aboard the Western Asia Kingdom's ship, inside a grand chamber on the ship, Ariel stood at the window, pouring her heart into her song. She sang with all her strength, her voice carrying as far as it could, even as her throat grew raw. She dare not stop. There's no other way. The Enderland soldiers are guarding the door. I can't leave this room. I can't even leave this ship to find Prince Eric. This is my only chance to reach him. Ariel thought desperately, but no matter how long she sang, nothing happened. With each passing second, hope drained from her heart. At dawn, when the first rays of sunlight touched the sea, she would turn into foam. Just as despair began to take hold, two figures materialized behind her. Rhine, the young magician. Aurora, the golden-haired girl. Her two human friends from the sea. Ariel, we're taking you off this ship, Rhine said with a smile. We'll get you to Prince Eric. Outside the room, the Enderland warriors stood guard, taking shifts to ensure the mermaid princess remained locked inside. A soldier came running up with a report. We've received orders. Don't worry about the girl singing. Let her sing all she wants. The commanding officer of the Enderland warriors nodded. Just keep an ear on the room. As long as we hear her voice, we'll know she's still inside. If she stops singing for more than 10 seconds, check on her immediately. No matter what, she must not leave this ship. Inside the room. But Rhine, Rora, the Enderland warriors are watching the door. The moment I step out, they'll stop me, Ariel said, her voice full of worry. Oh, but your magic can take me out, right? Just like you used it to get in. But those soldiers also open the door every so often to check on me, to make sure I'm here. The moment I disappear, they'll know. They'll report it immediately. The more Ariel spoke, the more anxious she became. Something is definitely wrong. They're keeping me here on purpose. They don't want me to see Eric. Something must have happened to him. Ryan smiled. Don't worry. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a seashell. He placed it on the table and clapped his hands twice. The seashell's mouth suddenly opened, and from within, a beautiful, sorrowful, yet enchanting song began to flow. Ariel's song. My voice. That's my voice. Ariel gasped. She had always heard that a mermaid's song could never be recorded by magic. Even if one tried, the reproduction would always be flawed, never as pure as the original. That was why the sea hag had demanded Ariel's voice as payment. It was also why, when a mermaid with an unparalleled voice turned into sea foam, no magic could ever bring her song back. And yet, this seashell was singing her song. Even Ariel herself couldn't tell the difference. "Let this seashell sing in your place," Rhine said with a grin. "Now let's go." With one hand, he grabbed Aurora. With the other, he held Ariel's wrist. In an instant, their figures began to fade. And then they were gone. Only the seashell remained, continuing to sing its haunting melody. Outside the room, the Interland warriors heard the song, still playing and relaxed. The girl still singing. "She's still inside," they muttered. Meanwhile, the ship suddenly began rocking harder than before. "Look, the sea is teeming with fish." One of the sailors pointed at the water below. A massive school of fish, large and small, had gathered around the ship. Some of them, seemingly mesmerized by the song, nudged the hull with their bodies, causing the ship to sway ever so slightly. The mermaid princess's song had drawn an audience from the sea. Too many of them. This isn't good. If these fish and sea beasts keep crowding around, they might tip the ship over, the Interland officer frowned. And if there's chaos, the girl might escape. Where did all these fish even come from? Assign one man to keep an eye on the door. The rest of you with me. We need to drive these fish away. The Interland warriors drew their bows, crossbows, and harpoons, preparing to strike at the sea creatures surrounding the ship. At that moment, they were too distracted, too preoccupied to notice the room behind them was now empty. Inside, the mirror world, the replica temple. "Eric, are you all right?" The princess gently patted Prince Eric's shoulder. "Are you feeling unwell? Do you need a rest?" She had clearly seen the pain on his face and was deeply worried about her betrothed. Everything about today feels strange. This rushed, hasty wedding. Prince Eric, lost in a daze. That breathtakingly beautiful song. And the way Eric reacted in agony upon hearing it. Everything appears so perfect, yet beneath the surface, something feels terribly off. This should be a joyous day, a miraculous reunion with the one I longed for. Yet why does it feel like something is wrong? Someone must be behind this. Is it my father? Or someone else? It has always been this way. Ever since I was born, I have followed my father's orders, obeying every arrangement without question. I was sent to the temple in the forest to learn royal etiquette while my sisters were not. I was promised to a foreign prince, only to meet him for a few hours before being forced into a rushed wedding. Should I do something about this? A storm of thoughts raced through the young princess's mind. She gently helped Prince Eric lie down on a cushioned bench. "Rest for a while, my prince." Then, she turned to the priest officiating the wedding. "Prince Eric is unwell. Let's pause the ceremony and resume when he recovers." At that moment, the old witch who had briefly disappeared re-entered the mirror world. "Princess, the ceremony is nearly complete. Please don't delay. Once Prince Eric rests for a short while, we should proceed immediately," she urged. The princess nodded lightly, but continued to stroke Eric's hair absent-mindedly. "Something is off. Why does my wedding feel so important? Why is this high-ranking court which so insistent on rushing it to completion? Could it be that something significant will happen once this wedding is finalized?" A strong gust of wind howled through the night, shifting the heavy storm clouds to obscure the silver moon. On the streets near the harbor, red lanterns glowed brightly as people celebrated the wedding of the prince and princess. No one noticed the three figures huddled in a shadowy alley, whispering urgently. "This is all aimed at Ariel, that old, which is behind it again," Aurora declared. "If this wedding is completed, Ariel will turn into sea foam at the first light of dawn. We must stop it, our Nigerian Ariobes." "Don't worry," Rhine said calmly. He offered no explanation, but there was something reassuring about the certainty in his voice. "I promise, Ariel will be fine." He patted Aurora on the shoulder with a smile. "Future queen, the next steps are yours to command. What do you say? If you run into any trouble, I'll be here to back you up." Aurora nodded. She was clearly the most anxious about Ariel's safety. But as a future ruler, she had to learn how to handle situations like this. She pointed toward the temple in the distance. "I've already checked. The wedding is happening in that temple." The temple was now surrounded on all sides by 3 layers of heavily armed soldiers. They stood shoulder to shoulder, brandishing gleaming bayonets. These were no ordinary guards. Each one had been handpicked by the old witch. They had battled supernatural creatures and fought against powerful magic-wielding foes before. "Can you teleport us directly inside the temple?" Ariel asked Ryan, hopeful. Ryan shook his head. "I can feel it. Powerful spells are protecting that place. They interfere with teleportation magic and block divination spells. I could try to teleport us in, but there's a risk. We might end up somewhere completely unexpected." Despite the urgency of the situation, Ryan remained as composed as ever, as if completely unfazed by the time ticking away. "Then forget it. Let's find another way. Maybe we can sneak past the guards," Ariel said, lowering her head. She couldn't let her friends take unnecessary risks for her. But Aurora merely grinned. "No need to worry, because your family is here too." "My family?" Ariel blinked in confusion. At the harbor, waves crashed violently against the shore, shattering into white foam. This was the royal harbor of Enderland, where hundreds of magnificent ships were docked, many of them warships belonging to the Empire's mighty navy. But now, something was wrong. Dark shadows gathered beneath the waters of the harbor. Moments later, the entire city erupted into chaos. "Something's wrong. There's trouble at the harbor. Enormous waves are crashing in. I've never seen waves this high before. There are so many fish and strange sea creatures. They're going wild, attacking the ships. At least a dozen warships have been breached. They're taking on water. Crews are scrambling to make repairs. The Thunder Emperor has sunk. Who did this? Are we under attack?" Today is supposed to be a joyous occasion, the wedding of the Western Asia Kingdom's prince and our princess. How could something like this happen? Send reinforcements to the harbor immediately. The entire royal harbor was in utter chaos. Soldiers rushed back and forth, relaying urgent messages. Confused citizens whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of what was happening. Wealthy merchants, dressed in fine robes, led their servants to the docks to check on their own ships, only to discover, with shock, that the only vessels being damaged were those belonging to the Empire. The wedding temple was located right next to the harbor. The soldiers assigned to guard were growing increasingly frantic. Even the officers in their ornate uniforms struggled to maintain order, their voices lost in the pandemonium. Squad captains abandoned their posts, leading troops to the harbor instead. Watching the escalating chaos, Ariel held her breath. She could already guess who was behind this. Her vision blurred slightly with emotion. The warriors of the Sea Kingdom have arrived. They've unleashed fierce sea creatures the likes of which no human has ever seen. Creatures powerful enough to pierce Enderland's warships. Ryan spoke calmly, stating the obvious. "My father's warriors, they still care about me." Ariel whispered, eyes wide with disbelief.